Hello there, and welcome to Planet in Question, a quiet corner where curiosity takes its time and wonder doesn't need to hurry. Tonight, we're going to drift into a question that feels both intimate and infinite at once. It's the kind of thought that might come to you late at night when the world outside is still, when you've run out of small worries to replay in your mind and something larger begins to take their place. The question is simple but vast. Is humanity only temporary in Earth's design? It sounds dramatic at first, but I promise this won't be a story of doom or despair. Think of it more like a slow walk through a forest at dusk. The air is soft, the light is fading, and every sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird reminds you that the world is bigger than you can see. That's how we'll move through this thought tonight. Gently, without conclusions, just following where curiosity leads. Before we begin, I'd like to ask something. Grounding. Where are you listening from right now? Maybe you're curled under a blanket, phone screen dimmed, ready to drift towards sleep. Maybe it's morning, and you've found this by chance while sipping your first cup of tea. Or perhaps you're listening in the middle of the day, looking for a little quiet space amid the noise of everything else. Wherever you are, this is a shared moment between us. You listening, me speaking. And beneath both of us, the same earth, ancient, patient, endlessly cycling through change. If you find this kind of journey soothing curiosity without urgency, ideas carried by calm instead of argument, I'd be grateful if you gave this video a like, maybe even subscribed. It helps this small world of gentle wonder find others who might need a slower rhythm in their night. But no pressure, no rush. Let's just breathe for a moment and settle into the question itself. When we ask whether humanity is temporary, we're not just asking if our civilization might collapse one day. That part, most of us already know is possible. History itself is a long archive of endings, empires fading into dust, languages vanishing, whole species lost to time. The deeper question is whether impermanence is part of the plan, whether the Earth, in its quiet and ageless way, expects things to end, whether everything that rises, including us, is meant to fall only to make space for something new. The first thing to remember is that the Earth doesn't think in our kind of time. To the planet, 1,000,000 years is a brief season. Mountains grow and crumble in what to us would be eternity. Oceans open and close like slow breaths. Continents drift across the planet's face so gradually that, if you could somehow watch from space, you'd see them moving like the slow swirl of cream in coffee. The Earth changes shape the way a living thing changes expression. And in that vast motion, even the most powerful creatures, the dinosaurs, ammonites, the forests of giant ferns were only temporary. When you realize that, it changes how you see our place here. Humanity, for all its brilliance and energy, is barely a flicker in the planet's long story. If the history of the Earth were compressed into a single day, life itself would appear around 4 in the morning. Dinosaurs would show up just before 11 at night. Humans, modern, thinking, tool-making humans, would arrive in the final few seconds before midnight. Our entire recorded history, every invention, every poem, every empire, would fit into the last breath of that final second. That's not meant to make us feel small, it's meant to make us feel connected, because everything before us was part of the same design. The same oceans that cradle us tonight once carried trilobites and plesiosaurs. The same winds that move our clouds once swept across deserts before the first trees had grown. Every atom in our bodies, every carbon, every oxygen has been part of countless other lives before us. We are not separate from the Earth's design. We are its continuation. And if the planet has always been a place of change, then maybe we, too, are meant to change or even pass within that rhythm. It's strange to think that our story might not be the goal, but the transition. We often picture ourselves as the pinnacle of evolution, the purpose of all that came before. But what if we are simply one phase in a long experiment? What if intelligence itself, our ability to reflect, to shape, to destroy, to dream, is not the conclusion of nature, but one of its passing moods? Perhaps Earth is testing what happens when awareness emerges. Maybe it's watching how self-consciousness behaves when it's given a world of resources, beauty and freedom, and seeing what balance, if any, can be found. If that's true, then being temporary isn't failure. It's participation. Every species before us served a role in Earth's long narrative. Coral building reefs that became limestone, plants releasing oxygen, insects pollinating the first flowers. They came, they thrived, they disappeared, and yet each left something behind that changed what came next. We might be no different. Maybe our role is to weave awareness into the fabric of the planet, to bring self-reflection to matter, even if just for a brief geological moment. Think of the way the night sky looks when you step outside. Billions of stars, each ancient beyond imagination. And yet, you can see them because light takes time to travel. Many of those stars may already be gone, their light still crossing the void. When we look up, we're seeing the past illuminated. Perhaps that's how Earth will see us, in a sense. Long after we're gone, traces of our existence will still echo in fossils, in layers of soil, in the thin chemical signatures of our industry. We will fade, but our light, our mark, will keep traveling for a while. Sometimes people say that humanity is destroying the planet, but the truth is subtler. The Earth isn't fragile in the way we are. It has endured worse than us: asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, global ice ages. When it changes on its own terms. What we endanger most is not the Earth, but our own place within it. And maybe that, too, is part of the design. If the planet's story is about adaptation and renewal, then every imbalance invites correction. Whether through us or after us, balance will return. It always does. There's a kind of peace in that idea. It doesn't excuse harm or dismiss responsibility. It simply places us in perspective. The world doesn't need us to last forever for its story to continue. We are a chapter, perhaps a brief one, perhaps a crucial one, but never the whole book. To know that is to be humbled, but also relieved. Because if we're temporary, then the pressure to be eternal disappears. We can focus on living meaningfully in the time we have, knowing that the story goes on beyond us. So tonight, as we wander through this idea together, let's hold that thought softly. Humanity may be temporary, but temporary things can still be beautiful, still be important. A cherry blossom, a sunset, a melody all end quickly, yet none are wasted. Maybe our species is like that, a single, luminous bloom in Earth's long garden. And when it fades, it will have added something to the soil for whatever grows next. Let's explore that possibility gently, how the Earth has always cycled through forms, how each era of life has built upon the last, and what that might mean for the time we live in now. This isn't about loss, it's about rhythm. It's about seeing our place in the pattern not as the end, but as part of an unfolding design, too vast and too calm to ever truly end. And so, if you're ready, take a slow breath. Let the idea settle in your chest. Imagine the world breathing with you, the forests drawing in air, the tides pulling at, the shore, the wind carrying dust across continents. All of it moving, changing, enduring. The Earth has been here long before us. It will be here long after. But for now, for this moment, it allows us to be part of its story, to think, to feel, to wonder. That's where our journey begins. 1. The moment we're in. If you step outside on a quiet night and look toward the horizon, you'll notice how still everything seems. The streetlights hum softly, the air holds a faint chill, and above you, the sky stretches in patient silence. From that stillness, it's easy to imagine that the world is steady, that we are somehow at the center of its story. But if you linger long enough to feel the earth itself beneath your feet, you begin to sense something different. The planet is not still. It's alive, restless, breathing through time. And we, the humans who move across its surface, might only be here for a brief moment in its long design. To understand that, it helps to notice where we are right now, not geographically, but temporally. This moment in history feels enormous to us. Billions of people alive at once, cities glowing like constellations on the dark side of the planet, machines orbiting overhead, satellites whispering to each other in invisible patterns. It feels like permanence. It feels like the world has reached its mature form, that maybe this is what the Earth was always moving toward. But when you step back far enough, the illusion changes. You begin to see that what we call civilization might just be a shimmer, a brief, bright interval in the planet's ongoing rhythm. Every day, we live surrounded by reminders of our own creation. The hum of electricity, the click of keys, the weight of buildings that rise higher than mountains once did. We have learned to command rivers, to light the darkness, to speak across oceans. And yet, beneath all of it, the Earth continues its patient cycles, unconcerned. The tectonic plates shift, millimeter by millimeter. Winds still carry sand from the Sahara across the Atlantic. Coral reefs grow and crumble. Forests breathe carbon in and out as they have for millions of years. Our noise rides on top of all that, a thin layer of human activity humming over an ancient rhythm that doesn't depend on us. Sometimes I wonder what this moment would look like if you could fold time the way you fold a map. Imagine watching the rise of cities from the perspective of the planet itself, seeing the lights bloom across the continents, the forests thinning, the smoke rising, the seas warming. It would look like a brief flare, a flicker of activity that begins suddenly and ends just as quickly. From the planet's viewpoint, all of human civilization might look like the quick flare of a match in a dark room, bright enough to notice, too brief to last. That isn't meant to make us feel small or insignificant. In fact, there's something deeply beautiful in the idea that we are part of a much larger pattern. For most of its history, the Earth has cycled through forms of life far stranger than ours. There were ages of coral seas and trilobites, ages of giant ferns, ages when reptiles ruled the land, when dragonflies had wings as wide as hawks. In each of those eras, life must have felt as though it would last forever. The forests would have seemed eternal, the creatures timeless. And yet, each of those worlds faded, absorbed into the next. None of them were failures. They were phases, vital, vivid, and temporary. The moment we're in now is no different. We often mistake our longevity for destiny. Because we can measure our progress, we assume there's a direction to it, that we're headed somewhere meaningful, that there's a grand purpose unfolding beneath all our building and striving. But the Earth doesn't think in terms of progress. It doesn't draw straight lines. It loops and cycles. What we call advancement is, from the planet's point of view, just another experiment. One more configuration of life, exploring what it means to exist. If you were to listen closely to the hum of our civilization, the rumble of engines, the chatter of networks, the quiet buzz of electricity, it might sound, to an outside observer, like the song of a species at its height. Yet, even in that sound, there's a hint of fragility. Our systems depend on balance, the right temperatures, the right resources, the right cooperation among billions of people. The Earth has weathered imbalance before. It corrects itself slowly, decisively. When the atmosphere tips too far in one direction, ice spreads. When it tips another way, the air thickens and life must adapt. From its perspective, our presence is just another factor in that ongoing adjustment, a brief, volatile pulse that may one day fade into silence. There's an odd peace in seeing it that way. It doesn't mean our lives lack meaning. Meaning isn't only found in duration, it's found in participation. To be alive right now, to witness this particular moment in the planet's vast unfolding, is extraordinary. We are here in the brief window when Earth has grown beings capable of looking back at it, capable of asking what it all means. The planet has developed eyes through us, and through those eyes, it can finally see itself. That alone makes this moment sacred, even if it doesn't last. Sometimes, when I walk through a city at night, I try to picture what this place would look like if it were discovered millions of years from now. Would there be any trace left? Maybe a faint outline of a building encased in rock, the ghost of metal oxidized into dust, a thin chemical layer marking our industrial age like a signature pressed between the pages of time. The streets, the lights, the stories all gone. And yet, that trace would be enough to say, something lived here that dreamed. The awareness of impermanence changes how you see things. The hum of traffic becomes a kind of heartbeat, steady but finite. The glow of a city at night looks less like permanence and more like fireflies, brief sparks in the dark, part of a greater rhythm. Knowing that we're temporary doesn't have to be frightening. It can be freeing. It means the weight of eternity isn't ours to bear. We can focus on the quality of our time rather than its length. This moment, we're in the human moment, may be fleeting, but it is luminous. It's the instant in Earth's story when the planet became self-aware enough to ask if it's temporary. The irony is that we may be the only creatures ever to question our place, even as that very awareness might be what leads us to fade. But even that fits the pattern. Consciousness rises, changes the world around it, and then yields to what comes next. Imagine, for a moment, the Earth without us. The cities would crumble quietly under vines and rain. The oceans would settle back into balance. Animals would fill the spaces we once occupied. Within a few thousand years, the traces of our existence would soften. Within a few million, they'd nearly vanish. And yet, something of us would remain the way oxygen remains from ancient plants, the way calcium in our bones becomes part of future stone. We would dissolve into the design, not as intruders, but as ingredients. When you think of the moment we're in that way, it becomes less a story of decline and more one of belonging. We are here for a while, glowing in the great dark like a campfire that will one day go out. But while it burns, it offers warmth, light, and a place to gather. That is enough. The planet has given us this short window to look around, to see, to love, to wonder. It doesn't promise forever, it promises now. And in this now, this breath, this quiet awareness, we are part of the planet's memory, not outside of it, not above it, within it. The same atoms that once moved through stars and oceans and ancient forests are breathing as you, right now. When your breath leaves you, it rejoins that cycle, carried on wind and rain and time. This is the moment we're in, fragile, brief, and luminous. A moment that will pass, but not be forgotten. For Earth, permanence isn't the goal, change is, and we are one of its most brilliant changes yet. 2. Earth's patience. There is something humbling about realizing just how slowly the Earth moves. Not in its rotation or orbit that's quick enough to mark our days and nights, but in its deeper motions, the ones we can't see. The slow breathing of continents drifting across molten currents, the mountains that rise and fall as if in slow motion, the seas that advance and retreat, rewriting coastlines like a patient author revising a manuscript that will never truly be finished. Everything about this planet suggests endurance. And yet, within that vast patience, everything we know, our species, our history, our civilizations, fits into the briefest possible moment. When you look at a landscape, it's easy to forget how old it is. The cliff faces that seem so still have been shaped by countless storms. The rivers that meander quietly through their valleys have been carving them for millions of years. Even the air we breathe has been exhaled and reabsorbed by endless generations of forests, oceans, and creatures. The Earth has been cycling its elements for longer than our imagination can stretch. Our lives, by comparison, are like the brief sparkle of sunlight on a single wave before it merges back into the sea. The patience of Earth is not the same as stillness. It is movement stretched across unimaginable time. Mountains don't resist erosion. They yield to it slowly, surrendering to gravity grain by grain until they become plains again. Oceans evaporate, fall as rain, and return. The very crust beneath our feet drifts and bends, breaking apart and reforming over eons. The Himalayas are rising even now, inch by inch, as if the planet were exhaling. Beneath the calm of our daily lives, the ground is in constant motion. It's just that we're too brief to notice. For most of its history, the Earth has been a world without witnesses. For billions of years there were no eyes to see its beauty, no minds to ponder its meaning. Volcanoes erupted, seas boiled, ice-covered continents and melted again, all in complete silence. When life finally appeared, it did so quietly, tiny cells drifting in the shallows, multiplying without intention. They too were patient. It took billions of years for those single cells to organize into something more complex, to discover ways to cooperate, to breathe the air and share the sea. Each step was an eternity. When we think about human history, we tend to imagine it as the story of progress. We like to see ourselves as the culmination of something, the final note in a symphony that began with dust and chaos. But if the Earth has a design, it isn't a straight line moving toward us. It's a circle, an ongoing rhythm of growth and renewal, of creation and erasure. Every rise is followed by a fall, every expansion by collapse, every age by another that forgets the one before. The patience of Earth is the patience of repetition. It allows everything to happen, then quietly reclaims it. The fossil record tells that story better than words ever could. For every species that has ever lived, 99 are gone. Extinction is not the exception, it's the rule. And yet, the world doesn't mourn, it adapts. Life disappears from one corner and reappears in another, transformed. After each great dying, the planet waits. It lets silence fill the oceans again, lets forests regrow from ash, lets the next generation of creatures discover new shapes and possibilities. It has no urgency, no fear of loss. It knows that everything returns in some form, eventually. In that sense, the Earth's patience isn't passive, it's creative. It doesn't rush to correct or to punish. It simply gives enough time for every mistake, every success, every experiment of life to unfold fully. The meteor that ended the age of dinosaurs wasn't the end of life, just the end of one chapter. The Earth absorbed the impact, shrouded itself in dust, cooled, and began again. Out of the chaos came mammals, then forests, then us. The same pattern that erased one world created another. To the planet, both events, the extinction and the rebirth, were part of the same gesture. We, however, have trouble seeing that way. Our patience is short. We live in minutes, hours, years. Our species measures progress in decades, occasionally centuries. But the Earth measures in millions. Its stories take so long to unfold that even the memory of beginnings fades before the endings arrive. The continents themselves are like slow-moving thoughts drifting through deep time. Africa once touched South America. Antarctica once held forests and rivers. The air we breathe has passed through countless forms of life before reaching us. Nothing here is new. Everything has been borrowed from something older. If you could listen to the Earth speak not in language, but in rhythm, it would sound like breathing. Long, slow breaths. Ice ages in, ice ages out. Forests rising, deserts expanding. The heartbeat of volcanoes, the pulse of tides, the sigh of wind against rock. Everything steady, repeating. And within that vast, calm pulse, humanity is a sudden quickening, a sharp inhalation. We've burned forests, moved mountains, changed the chemistry of the air and sea in the blink of a geological eye. To us, it feels like history. To the Earth, it's a momentary fever. One that will pass. That's not meant as condemnation. It's simply perspective. The planet has seen countless such transformations. It has endured global heat, global cold, toxic atmospheres, barren stretches where almost nothing survived, and always, given time, it recovered. The Earth doesn't need saving, in the way we imagine. It needs time, and time is the one thing it always has. What may be temporary, what may be fragile, is us. We depend on the thin layer of stability that Earth occasionally offers, the right balance of oxygen, temperature, and water. To the planet, that balance is a fleeting equilibrium. To us, it's home. There's a gentle irony in that. We've built our entire civilization on the assumption that the world will stay roughly as it is. We plant crops according to predictable seasons. We build cities by the sea as if the sea were permanent. We treat the climate as a backdrop, not a character in its own right. But Earth's patience doesn't promise stillness, it promises change. Sooner or later, the seas will move, the ice will shift, the continents will take new shapes. It won't be punishment. It will simply be the continuation of what has always been. When you start to think in those terms, the Earth's patience becomes almost comforting. It means that nothing is truly lost. Even when species vanish or civilizations crumble, the ingredients remain. They're recycled into new forms, stone into soil, life into carbon, carbon into atmosphere, and back again. The very atoms that once built ancient forests now flow through your lungs. You're part of that same patience, whether you realize it or not. In the far future, Long after humanity has changed or disappeared, the planet will still be here. The continents may join again into a new supercontinent, ringed by unfamiliar seas. Mountains will rise where none exist today. Deserts will bloom where oceans once stood. The sun will slowly brighten, and the earth will adapt as it always has, melting, cooling, rebalancing. The memory of humans will be pressed into stone, dissolved into chemistry. But the process will continue. It always continues. There's a quiet grace in that thought. The patience of the earth is what allows everything to exist without permanence. It gives each form, each creature, each civilization, the time it needs to live, to make its mark, and to pass away. Nothing is wasted. Even our end, whenever it comes, will become part of the soil that nurtures whatever follows. That's the rhythm of this world: birth, growth, decay, renewal, not cruel, not kind. Simply constant. If we could learn to think more like the earth, to stretch our sense of time beyond lifetimes and generations, we might find a deeper kind of peace. The anxieties that drive us, the fear of endings, the rush toward achievement, all of it would soften, because we'd understand that everything changes, and that change is not loss but transformation. The earth doesn't resist time, it moves with it. Maybe that's what patience really is, not waiting, but trusting that everything will unfold as it must. So when you feel small under the night sky, or worried about the future, remember this: the ground beneath you has held countless lives before yours. It will hold countless more after. The stones that build your home were once seabeds. The air in your lungs was once exhaled by ancient forests. You are not separate from the planet's patience. You are an expression of it. For a brief moment, the earth is breathing through you. And when your time passes, when humanity's time passes, the breath will continue. Slow, steady, eternal. The earth will wait, as it always has, for whatever comes next. 3. The long chain of life. If you close your eyes and try to imagine the first flicker of life on Earth, it's almost impossible. The world then was unrecognizable, oceans tinted green with minerals, skies thick with volcanic haze, continents not yet shaped into anything familiar. And somewhere in that strange chemistry, something happened. Molecules met, combined, and began to copy themselves. Not consciously, not intentionally, but persistently. It was the first whisper of what would one day become life. That was nearly 4 billion years ago. Since then, the Earth has been busy, turning that whisper into a symphony. Every living thing that has ever existed, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale, has been a note in that long, unfolding song. When we talk about evolution, it's easy to imagine it as a ladder, each step leading upward toward us. But life doesn't climb, it spreads. It branches like a great tree whose roots reach backward into the sea, and whose leaves are every creature that has ever existed. And if you trace those branches far enough, you'll find that all of them connect. Somewhere deep in the ocean of time, we share an ancestor with every bird, every fish, every mushroom, every blade of grass. The long chain of life isn't a straight line leading to humanity. It's a vast web, and we are one of its many temporary patterns. Think of the trilobites, armoured little wanderers that scuttled across the seafloor 500 million years ago. They thrived for nearly 300 million years before, disappearing completely. Compared to them, we are newborns. The dinosaurs too reigned for what felt like forever, until the sky itself fell upon them. The great forests of the Carboniferous period, the giant dragonflies, the ammonites with their coiled shells, all rose, flourished, and fell away. Each generation of life believed, in its own way, that the world belonged to it, but the earth never promised permanence, it only promised change. Every extinction, every collapse has made room for something new. The long chain of life is also a chain of transformation. The creatures that vanished did not disappear completely. Their elements, their energy, their innovations were passed on. The bones of one species became the wings of another. The gills of fish became the lungs of land animals. Even the oxygen we breathe was a gift from ancient microbes that once poisoned their own world with the gas we now depend on. Life has always been both destroyer and creator, building, breaking, and rebuilding across the ages. When you look at the fossil record, it's tempting to think of it as a list of losses. So many vanished worlds, so many forms erased. But the deeper truth is more generous. Nothing in life truly vanishes. Every extinction is a kind of inheritance. The trilobites left us vision compound eyes that set the pattern for how creatures would see. The plants of the ancient forests left us coal and oxygen. The dinosaurs left us birds. Even our own ancestors, the early primates, the small mammals hiding in the shadows of giants, left behind the intelligence that would eventually wonder about its own impermanence. We are not separate from what came before. We are what came before, wearing new faces. It's easy to feel detached from that long story because our lives are so brief and our world so focused on the present. But sometimes, if you pause long enough, you can sense the continuity. You can feel it in the rhythm of your breath, oxygen drawn in, carbon released, a pattern older than words. You can feel it in your heartbeat, pulsing with the same chemistry that moved through ancient seas. Every cell in your body is a descendant of those first self-replicating molecules. They carry the same instructions: to live, to change, to continue. In that sense, you are not just part of the chain of life. You are the chain, extended into this particular moment. What's remarkable is how stubborn life has been. The Earth has tried to end it more than once: asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, oceans turning to acid, ice swallowing continents, and yet life keeps returning. Each time, it reshapes itself into something new. The resilience isn't random, it's woven into the very design of living things. DNA is not just a molecule of inheritance, it's a story written in loops and redundancies, built to survive disaster. It's almost as if the Earth wanted life not only to exist but to endure, to keep trying, even if it meant reinventing itself after every fall. And yet, for all its resilience, life has never sought control. It doesn't rule the planet, it inhabits it. Even when a species dominates for a while, the balance eventually shifts. The ammonites gave way to fish, the dinosaurs to mammals, and perhaps one day, mammals to something else. The Earth doesn't play favorites. It simply allows what fits, for as long as it fits. When the climate changes or the continents move, the world reconfigures itself, and the cycle begins again. In that way, extinction isn't a punishment. It's a kind of editing. Sometimes I think about what it means that humans are part of this chain. We like to imagine that we've stepped outside of nature, that we control it, that we can preserve or destroy it at will. But the truth is quieter and more intimate. We are still within the same process. We build cities the way coral builds reefs, layer upon layer, following instincts of connection and survival. Our technologies, our systems, even our art, are extensions of life's long impulse to create and to adapt. We are not above the chain of life. We are one of its temporary expressions, testing how far awareness itself can evolve. If you could compress the history of life into a single year, single-celled organisms would fill the first 10 months. The Cambrian explosion, the great blooming of multicellular life, would happen in late November. Dinosaurs would appear in mid-December and vanish just before Christmas. Humanity? We would arrive in the final seconds of New Year's Eve, lighting fires and building cities while the clock ticked toward midnight. That's how recent we are. And yet, in that brief moment, we've managed to alter the entire planet's climate, chemistry, and future. The question is whether that's the culmination of the chain, or just another turn in its endless cycle. The long chain of life doesn't guarantee survival for any one species. Its purpose, if it can be said to have, one, is continuation through transformation. What we call extinction, the Earth calls adaptation. We are part of that process, whether we like it or not. One day, our cities might crumble, our technologies might decay, and new forms of life will inherit what we leave behind. Perhaps they will walk the ruins of our civilization the way we walk among fossils, curious, wondering, unaware of the lives that once animated these shapes. And maybe that's all right, because even if humanity is temporary, life will not stop. The Earth will continue to breathe, to evolve, to experiment. It will take the materials we've moved and the changes we've made and turn them into something else. In that way, we will never truly disappear. Our atoms will become part of new beings, our inventions part of new ecosystems, our traces part of the geological memory. We will dissolve back into the pattern that created us, just as every species before us has done. It's strange, isn't it? To think that death and disappearance are not endings, but transitions. That the long chain of life is less about survival and more about inheritance. Every living thing passes something forward: energy, matter, memory. We are the current link, the caretakers of everything that came before and the ancestors of everything that will come next. Whether we endure for another 1,000 years or 1,000,000, the chain will go on. It always does. So perhaps the most honest way to see ourselves is not as the crown of creation, but as a brief continuation of a story far older and wiser than us. A story written in sunlight and water, in stone and bone. A story that has no true beginning and no final chapter, only transformation after transformation, like waves folding into each other on an endless sea. And tonight, as you sit in whatever quiet corner you found, remember that you're part of that story too. The breath you take now is ancient. The pulse in your wrist is a rhythm learned from the planet itself. Every cell in you carries the memory of oceans older than the moon. You are not separate from the long chain of life, you are one of its links, glowing briefly in the vast patience of time before passing the light onward. 4. The fragile architecture of civilization. If you were to look down at Earth from orbit at night, you'd see a web of light stretching across continents, thin threads of brightness tracing the coasts, pulsing at city centers, scattered like constellations across the dark surface of the planet. From up there, it almost looks alive, like veins glowing beneath skin, carrying the lifeblood of an intelligent species. It's beautiful, and it feels eternal. But those lights, that hum of civilization, are fragile. They depend on balance of air, of temperature, of peace, of time. They are the surface expression of something temporary, a thin layer of flickering brilliance laid over billions of years of silent stone. When you walk through a city, surrounded by towers of glass and steel, it's hard to imagine that any of it could ever vanish. The streets seem solid, the buildings permanent. The sound of traffic, the vibration of trains, the flicker of screens, they all create the illusion of endurance. Yet history tells another story. Civilizations have always believed they were the final ones. They've always imagined their monuments would outlast time. And one by one, they've faded. Stone by stone, word by word, until the world beneath them quietly reclaimed what was once borrowed. Somewhere beneath the forests of Central America lie the remains of Mayan cities once filled with music, markets, and mathematics. Beneath the sands of Egypt, entire dynasties sleep beneath shifting dunes. In the Mediterranean, the ruins of Rome still stand like bones of a creature that once ruled the world. Every civilization begins with hope, reaches for eternity, and ends in silence. Not from malice or punishment, but from entropy, the simple, patient, unmaking that time performs on all things. The earth doesn't destroy, it reclaims. It recycles everything we build back into itself. If our cities were to be left alone, without people, the process would begin immediately. Within days, grass would push through cracks in the pavement. Within months, birds would nest in open windows. Within years, roofs would collapse under their own weight. Within centuries, forests would grow where neighborhoods once stood. Metal would rust, glass would shatter, and eventually, the bones of our architecture would sink into soil. Even our grandest creations, skyscrapers, bridges, monuments would crumble, just as mountains do, given enough time. Civilization, for all its confidence, is as impermanent as a sandcastle before the tide. But that's not a reason to despair. Fragility doesn't make something meaningless. A snowflake melts, a wave dissolves, a song fades, yet none of them are failures. They're moments of beauty, made more precious, because they end. Maybe civilization itself is like that, a brief pattern of complexity in the long flow of Earth's history. It rises from the raw materials of the planet, iron, silicon, carbon, and arranges them into patterns that think, move, and build. For a while, it glows. Then, inevitably, it unravels, returning those elements to the larger system. The fragility of our world becomes clear when you realize how thin its foundations are. Our atmosphere, the delicate layer that holds warmth and breath, is thinner than the skin of an apple compared to the planet beneath it. Our food systems depend on a few inches of fertile soil. Our technologies rely on metals drawn from narrow seams in the crust. And our societies rest on agreements, trust, cooperation, communication that can fracture with astonishing ease. We've built a global civilization that can send probes to other planets, yet can be undone by drought, by disease, by misunderstanding. That contrast our brilliance and our vulnerability is perhaps the most human thing about us. We've always tried to guard against impermanence. Every wall, every archive, every story told and retold is an act of defiance against forgetting. The pyramids, the Great Wall, the cathedrals, the satellites we send into space, they're all ways of saying, we were here, and they do last for a time, but not forever. Even the Voyager probes, drifting beyond the solar system, will one day fall silent. The golden records they carry, our songs, our greetings, our map of home, will erode atom by atom under cosmic radiation until nothing remains but dust. The universe itself will forget, as it forgets everything. And yet, maybe that forgetting isn't tragic. Maybe it's natural, because the point of civilization might not be to last forever, but to happen, to exist briefly, vividly, as part of Earth's process of experimenting with consciousness. Our cities, our languages, our art, all of them are like coral, reefs of thought, built layer upon layer by countless lives. They're fragile, yes, but they're also astonishing proof that matter can reflect on itself, that the dust of stars can ask questions about its own existence. Sometimes I think the Earth creates civilizations the way trees create leaves. Each one grows, gathers light, and falls, enriching the soil for what comes next. The ruins of past societies aren't failures, they're nutrients for future ones. Every stone foundation buried beneath soil becomes part of a new ecosystem. Every collapsed empire adds to the story of adaptation. The pattern is constant: rise, flourish, fade, renew. The Earth's patience allows it to happen again and again, without judgment. When we speak about the fragility of our civilization, it's tempting to focus on danger, on climate, on conflict, on collapse. But fragility is also what allows flexibility. The very fact that our systems can change, that we can learn, that we can rebuild after disaster, is proof that impermanence can be a gift. Stone is strong but breaks. Water is soft but endures. Our survival has always depended on that paradox. We thrive not because we're invincible, but because we're adaptable. Still, it's worth wondering how we'll be remembered, if at all. 1,000,000 years from now, what will remain of our architecture? Perhaps a few outlines in rock, a layer of plastic sediment marking the Anthropocene, faint chemical traces of steel and glass fused by time. Maybe, just maybe, a future intelligence, human or otherwise, will find those traces and wonder what we were. They'll read our ruins the way we read fossils, as the memory of something that once dreamed. What they might see is a civilization that reached astonishing heights of awareness, but never escaped its own nature. A species that built towers of metal and networks of light, yet still carried the ancient instincts of survival and curiosity that drove its ancestors across savannas. They'll see that we changed the planet not out of malice, but out of motion, that our restlessness was part of the same pattern that made oceans shift and continents move. They'll see that we tried to last, even though nothing truly does. And in that recognition, maybe there's a strange kind of immortality. Not in the endurance of our structures, but in the continuity of transformation. The atoms that make up our buildings, our bodies, our machines will go on to form something else. Mountains, forests, new forms of life. The energy we've spent will settle back into balance. Civilization's fragility doesn't end the story, it hands it forward. We are a chapter, not the conclusion. So, as you walk through your own city, or drive along highways that glitter with headlights, remember that this too is part of Earth's cycle. It's not separate from nature, it's an extension of it. The steel in skyscrapers was once ore in mountains. The glass in windows was once sand at the bottom of a sea. The electricity lighting your room was once sunlight trapped in ancient forests. Civilization is nature rearranging itself into something briefly self-aware. Someday, it will rearrange again. Our towers will return to dust, our noise will fade into the wind, and the earth will carry on, patient as ever. New forests will grow where our cities stand, rivers will carve new paths, and perhaps other forms of life will rise to wonder as we once did. That's not the end of civilization, it's its fulfillment. Everything returns, everything renews. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real beauty of our fragility. The fact that we know it, that we can look around and see how delicate it all is, means we are awake within the story. The lights we build, the words we share, the brief patterns we leave behind, all shimmer with meaning precisely because they will not last. To be fragile is to be alive. And to be alive, even for a moment in Earth's long design, is to be part of something timeless. 5. The geological memory. If you were to hold a piece of ancient stone in your hand, a smooth grey pebble pulled from a riverbed or a slab of rock chipped from a cliff, you'd be holding more than just matter. You'd be holding a page from the Earth's autobiography. Every layer, every grain, every fossil embedded within it is a memory. The planet remembers in stone. It doesn't write its history in words or images, but in minerals, pressure, and time. And those memories stretch back far beyond the reach of our own. Humans record with ink, with pixels, with sound. But the Earth records with sediment. Over millions of years, dust settles, oceans deposit shells, volcanoes scatter ash, and glaciers carve valleys. Every event leaves a trace, tiny, imperceptible to us in the moment, but enduring on geological scales. When we dig into the crust, we're not just cutting into rock, we're reading the planet's memories. Each layer tells a story of climate, of catastrophe, of renewal. Some layers tell of quiet ages where nothing much happened except the slow dance of continents. Others mark abrupt moments of change, asteroid impacts, mass extinctions, floods of lava that reshaped the world. The Earth has always been its own historian. Long before we learned to carve marks into clay or paper, it was already keeping record patiently, unhurriedly. And unlike our archives, which can burn or fade, its memory lasts for eons. The stone under your feet might once have been seabed beneath a tropical ocean, later lifted by tectonic forces into mountains, later eroded into sand again. Every rock carries echoes of transformation. What we think of as permanence is, for the Earth, a phase in an endless cycle of remembering and forgetting. What's remarkable is that we've learned to read this language. The fossils pressed into limestone, the isotopes trapped in ice cores, the iron streaks in ancient sediments, all are parts of a code, a diary, written in slow motion. From it, we've pieced together a timeline of unimaginable length. We know that continents have wandered like drifting rafts, colliding and splitting apart. We know that entire atmospheres have come and gone. We know that the world has frozen solid and then thawed again, over and over, each time giving life a new shape to inhabit. The geological memory reveals not stability, but transformation. It shows that change is not the exception, but the rhythm of everything. And within that memory, we've left our own mark thin, but distinct. A layer of plastic polymers, concrete dust, radioactive isotopes, and carbon residue now rests atop the older strata. Future geologists, if there are any, will see it as a sharp boundary in the planet's story, the Anthropocene. They'll see evidence of a species that reshaped rivers, mined mountains, burned forests, and altered the air itself. Our entire civilization, for all its brilliance and fragility, will be reduced to a thin band in the rock record, perhaps only a few centimeters thick. That is how the Earth will remember us. It's humbling to think that all of human history might be compressed into a layer you could hold between your fingers. Everything, our wars, our art, our language, our dreams, becoming a trace of altered chemistry in ancient sediment. But it's also strangely comforting, because even though we'll vanish, the memory of us will not be erased. It will join the rest of the planet's layered recollections, one more chapter in its unending story. The rocks that once supported our buildings will someday lie beneath the foundations of forests. The concrete of our cities will become new stone. Our satellites will fall, burning briefly as they return to the atmosphere, scattering their dust into the same cycle of erosion and renewal. We may fade, but we will still be written in the Earth's script. That script is slow, but it's precise. For example, if you look at a cross-section of sediment in a desert canyon, you can see alternating bands of color: red, grey, white, black. Each one marks a shift in environment: a wetter age, a drier one, an age of fire, an age of calm. The planet has a perfect memory for rhythm. It knows the pulse of its own heartbeat. Every few 100 million years, continents merge and break apart. Every few tens of millions, new species rise and old ones vanish. Every few 100,000, ice advances and retreats. It is a slow, deep breathing. And in that long inhale and exhale, humanity is a single sigh. When you stand on a mountain ridge or walk along the edge of an ancient sea cliff, you can feel the scale of that memory. The silence of such places is not emptiness, it's fullness beyond words. The stones around you have seen the passage of ages, the births and deaths of worlds. They have felt the crush of glaciers, the heat of magma, the weight of oceans. Their patience dwarfs our entire history, and yet, here we are, able to notice it, to recognize the memory beneath our feet. That awareness is perhaps our greatest gift as a species. For a moment, the Earth has grown consciousness deep enough to recall itself. It's easy to think that we're the only ones who remember, but the Earth's memory is older, deeper, and more complete than ours could ever be. When a species goes extinct, its bones sink into that memory. When a forest burns, its ashes settle into new soil, carrying the chemical ghosts of what came before. Even the lightest breeze carries particles of history: dust from ancient mountains, pollen from long-lost fields, fragments of meteorites that predate our sun. Every breath we take mingles with the past. If we could listen to the planet remembering, it might not sound like words or music. It would sound like wind carving canyons, like waves striking cliffs, like the soft crumble of rock into sand. Memory here is not linear, it's cyclical. The same atoms that once formed ancient creatures may now flow through rivers or live in your bones. The Earth doesn't distinguish between past and present. It recycles both into the future. Its memory is not about holding on, but about transformation. And yet, there's something poignant in knowing that our own version of memory is fleeting compared to the planet's. Our data, our books, our monuments, all of them will fade long before the geological record forgets us. What remains after we're gone will not be our languages or our technologies, but our effects: how we changed the chemistry of oceans, the temperature of air, the structure of soil. Those, for better or worse, will be the fossils of our time. Still, the idea that the Earth remembers us can be oddly comforting. It means that nothing we do is truly lost. Even our mistakes become part of the planet's evolving narrative. The smog that darkens a sky becomes carbon that feeds new life. The ruins we leave behind become stone for new generations of landscape. The sound of our footsteps, our voices, our laughter, those vibrations dissipate into air, but their echoes join the long hum of the world. The Earth records everything, even what we forget. In this way, our lives are both ephemeral and eternal. Each moment you experience, each thought, each heartbeat is recorded in some form, however subtle. The heat your body releases drifts upward into the atmosphere, its energy absorbed and re-emitted endlessly. The carbon you exhale will one day settle into rock. The atoms that compose your body will return to the Earth's great archive, becoming part of a future memory. You are already inscribed in the story of the planet, written in the language of matter and time. And perhaps that's the truest meaning of geological memory. It reminds us that impermanence is not the same as oblivion. The Earth does not forget, it transforms. Everything that has ever lived still exists here, just rearranged. The fossils of ancient fish are now limestone cliffs. The forests of the Carboniferous are now the coal that warms our homes. The remains of long-lost creatures swirl in the air as dust, invisible but present. The planet carries all of it, patiently layering it into the next version of itself. So when you stand on solid ground, remember that it is anything but empty. Beneath your feet lies an unbroken chain of memory, written not by hands but by time itself. Every rock, every grain of sand, every drop of water has been somewhere before. You are walking on the compressed stories of worlds. And someday, the layer of today, our cities, our forests, our species, will be another chapter in that book. The earth will close it gently, turn the page, and continue writing. 6. The design of renewal. If you watch the ocean long enough, you'll start to notice that nothing in it ever truly ends. A wave rises, curls, and breaks, but its water doesn't vanish. It folds back into the sea, becomes part of another swell, another rhythm. The earth moves in much the same way. Every loss, every collapse, every ending we imagine is, in truth, only a transformation, a redistribution of energy, a rebalancing of form. The planet's design is not one of permanence, but of renewal. It allows everything, from a forest to a civilization, to bloom, decay, and bloom again. When you think about renewal, it's easy to picture spring, the way bare branches come back to life, the way frozen soil softens and breathes again. But Earth's renewal works on every scale, not just the seasonal. On the level of deep time, entire worlds have come and gone. Continents have shattered and merged, climates have swung from fire to ice, and life itself has reinvented its shapes countless times. Renewal, here, is not an exception, it's the rule. The planet's patience ensures that even destruction is temporary. Nothing is wasted, everything returns. Consider a volcanic eruption. To us, it looks like violence, a mountain tearing, itself open, spewing ash and fire across the sky. But to the earth, it's a form of restoration. The ash that darkens the air will later feed the soil with minerals. The lava that buries a landscape will one day cool into fertile rock. Forests will regrow over the ruins, richer than before. In time, even the memory of the eruption will fade, replaced by greenery and silence. The planet's design doesn't separate creation from destruction. It folds them into one process, the endless act of becoming. We can see that same rhythm in extinction. More than once, the Earth has erased nearly everything living upon it. The Permian extinction wiped out around 90% of life in the oceans. Yet from that devastation emerged new ecosystems, new ways of being alive. The dinosaurs' sudden end opened the door for mammals who would one day look up at the sky and wonder about their place in it. Renewal isn't always gentle, but it's consistent. The Earth rebuilds itself with every fall, transforming even catastrophe into opportunity. Humans have a hard time accepting that rhythm. We like to imagine stability, to believe that what we build can endure unchanged. Our architecture, our borders, our systems, all are built on the illusion of permanence. But the truth is softer and far more beautiful. We exist within a design that thrives on change. When forests burn, new species find light. When rivers flood, they shape new paths. When climates shift, life migrates and transforms. Renewal is not a response to failure. It's the very mechanism by which the world remains alive. If you look closely, you can see renewal in the smallest things. A fallen tree becomes a bridge for moss and insects. A decaying leaf feeds the soil that will nourish another plant. The air you breathe right now contains atoms that once belonged to countless other beings, plants, animals, even stars. Nothing is lost. The breath that leaves your lungs will mix with the wind, join clouds, fall again as rain, and feed life you will never see. In this way, the design of renewal is not abstract or distant. It's happening in every breath, every heartbeat, every passing moment. Perhaps that's the most profound aspect of Earth's design. It turns impermanence into continuity. Instead of resisting decay, it uses it. Instead of preserving forms, it recycles them into new possibilities. The coral reef that dies becomes the limestone that builds new islands. The glaciers that melt fill rivers that carve new valleys. Even extinction, the most final of endings in our minds, becomes fertile ground for evolution. The planet doesn't cling to what was, it leans toward what could be. We can feel this design working within us too. Our bodies are small reflections of the planet's rhythm. Old cells die so new ones can form. Every 7 to 10 years, nearly every atom in your body has been replaced. You are not the same person, in a literal sense, that you were a decade ago. And yet, you continue. You renew. We are microcosms of Earth's larger process, impermanent in structure, continuous in essence. Renewal is the quiet miracle that allows both planets and people to keep existing in motion rather than stasis. There's something almost forgiving in that, because if everything renews, then nothing is truly ruined. The mistakes we make, the harm we cause, even the marks of our civilization, all will be absorbed, transformed, and reused. Plastic might become sediment, carbon might become diamond, radiation might disperse and fade into harmless trace. It doesn't mean we should act carelessly, far from it, but it does mean that the Earth is not fragile in the way we often think. It can break, yes, but it also knows how to heal. Renewal is written into its physics. Still, there's a subtle wisdom in recognizing that renewal always requires surrender. For something new to emerge, something old must give way. Forests rely on fire, species rely on extinction, and the planet itself relies on change. Even the stars live and die, scattering the elements that will form new worlds. Humanity may one day face its own renewal, not in a mystical sense, but in a literal one. Whether through transformation, evolution, or disappearance, we too are part of that cycle. Our ending, when it comes, will not be outside the pattern, but within it. The Earth will continue, rearranging our remnants into whatever comes next. Imagine, for a moment, a world millions of years from now. The continents have drifted again. The air is different. The seas have shifted. Where our cities once stood, forests or deserts stretch unbroken. The fossils of our species lie deep beneath the soil, compressed into stone. But above, life thrives different, unfamiliar, yet connected. Perhaps new beings walk the land, unaware of us, but benefiting from what we left behind. The metals we mined, the nutrients we released, even the warmth we added to the atmosphere, all have become part of a new equilibrium. In that far future, the Earth has renewed itself once more, using our brief presence as compost for what came after. There's a quiet peace in that vision. It removes the weight of tragedy and replaces it with continuity. It reminds us that we don't have to last forever to matter. Our task is not to preserve the world in amber, but to live within its rhythm, to build, to care, to create, knowing that everything we touch will someday change form. Renewal gives meaning to transience. It tells us that endings are beginnings wearing different shapes. Perhaps that's why so many of Earth's patterns are circular: the orbit of the moon, the turning of seasons, the spiral of galaxies, the curve of shells and storms. The circle is the shape of return. It's the universe's way of reminding itself that nothing is truly linear, that progress and decline are two sides of the same motion. In a circle, there is no true loss, only transition. That's the language the Earth speaks through time. That's the code written into every grain of sand and every atom of air. And maybe, when we look at the challenges of our age, climate, conflict, and extinction, we can learn something from that language. Renewal doesn't happen through force, it happens through balance. The Earth doesn't erase what it no longer needs, it repurposes it. We could do the same. Our technologies, our societies, our ways of living could evolve into forms that align with the planet's cycles rather than fight them. In doing so, we would become participants in renewal rather than obstacles to it. For now, though, we are in a moment of reckoning, a moment where we can still feel the old world fading and the new one not yet formed. It can feel frightening, uncertain. But that uncertainty is not a flaw. It's the space in which renewal begins. Every great transformation starts as an imbalance, a pause before the next breath. The Earth has done this countless times before. It will do it again. So, when you think about the planet's design, think of the sea returning to calm after a storm, of a forest regrowing from ash, of night yielding to dawn. That is how the world renews itself again and again, without hurry, without end. And we, brief as we are, get to be part of that rhythm. We rise, we fall, we return. The pattern holds, the song continues, and the earth, patient as ever, keeps turning the page. 7. Lessons from the fossil record. If you could walk through the fossil record as though it were a hallway, each step would take you deeper into time. The walls would be made of stone, layered with patterns that resemble stories, spirals of shells, impressions of leaves, the outlines of creatures that no longer exist. Some of them would look familiar, distant cousins of modern life. Others would look like dreams, or like experiments from a time before imagination itself. Each fossil is a whisper from a vanished world, and together they form the most patient teacher we have. The fossil record doesn't just show us what once lived, it shows us how life endures by letting go, how creation and extinction dance together in the same long rhythm. When you pick up a fossil, you're holding a moment that refused to disappear. The creature it represents is gone, but its form lingered, preserved in sediment, pressed into permanence. Yet even permanence in stone is temporary. Given enough time, the rock will erode, the imprint will fade, and the atoms will join the world again. The fossil record, then, is not a static museum, but a living conversation between time and memory. It reveals that Earth has never been still, that life is always rewriting itself. In its earliest chapters, the record shows a world of simplicity. For billions of years, there were no plants, no animals, no colour, just single-celled organisms drifting through oceans. They left behind microscopic traces, chemical ghosts buried in stone. Then, quite suddenly, complexity blossomed. In what scientists call the Cambrian explosion, life diversified into countless forms. Trilobites with armoured shells, strange soft-bodied creatures that glided through ancient seas, the first predators and prey. It was as if the planet, after eons of quiet experimentation, had suddenly discovered creativity. That surge of diversity wasn't random, it was the beginning of life learning to adapt. But the fossil record also shows that for every burst of innovation, there comes a period of loss. The Cambrian seas flourished, then emptied. New species rose, only to vanish. Mass extinctions punctuate the history of life like commas in a sentence too long to read aloud. The Ordovician, the Devonian, the Permian, the Cretaceous, all marked by die-offs so immense that they redefined the planet's possibilities. Each time, more than half of all life disappeared, yet each time, something new followed. Life didn't just return, it transformed. That is one of the great lessons of the fossil record. Extinction is not the end of life, but part of its rhythm. The Earth does not cling to forms, it recycles them. After the Permian extinction, the worst in history, when more than 90% of marine life vanished, the planet entered a long silence. Then, slowly, new species emerged, filling the empty spaces left behind. The dinosaurs rose from that renewal, towering and strange, dominating for over 160 million years. When they finally fell, they left behind a world ready for mammals, for forests, for us. The fossil record shows that loss is fertile ground. It's how life learns to begin again. It's difficult for us, with our short human lifespans, to grasp this scale of patience. To us, an extinction feels like a tragedy without recovery. But to the Earth, it is change in motion, a shift in balance, a new chapter in the long experiment. Even now, as we live through what many scientists call the sixth mass extinction, the same pattern is at work. Our activities may be accelerating the pace, but the planet will adapt, just as it always has. Life will find new paths, even if they don't include us. The fossil record reminds us that survival belongs to change, not resistance. There's a kind of humility in that realization. When you look at fossils, you see that no species, no matter how mighty, escapes time. The ammonites once ruled the seas, their spiral shells as common as raindrops. Now they're silent stone, decorating cliffs and museum shelves. The great forests of the Carboniferous once blanketed the planet in green so dense it created the air we breathe. Now those trees exist as coal seams buried beneath our feet. Even the trilobites, which thrived for hundreds of millions of years, disappeared completely. If endurance were proof of superiority, they would have been the masters of Earth. But time, patient and impartial, moved on. What the fossil record teaches isn't despair, but perspective. It shows that endings are natural, that impermanence is the only constant. Yet within that impermanence lies continuity. Many of the traits we think of as uniquely human sight, movement, social behavior, even the structure of our bones are gifts from ancestors long gone. The first fish to crawl onto land set in motion a lineage that would lead, billions of years later, to you and me sitting here, breathing air that once filled the lungs of their descendants. We are living fossils in motion, carrying forward the successes of ancient experiments. There's something profoundly intimate in that thought. The calcium in your bones was once part of the shells of sea creatures. The iron in your blood was forged in the cores of exploding stars long before Earth existed. You are, in a very literal sense, made of history. The fossil record is not something outside of you, it's something within you. Your body is a continuation of the same materials, the same chemistry, the same persistence that carved those shapes. Into stone, you are part of the record still being written. Sometimes I imagine what future beings might find if they were to uncover the fossils of our time. They'd see the imprints of our tools, the structures of our cities, the outlines of our bones mixed with plastic and glass. They'd see that we were creatures who reshaped the planet faster than any before us, who reached for the stars even as we struggled to understand our own roots. They'd read our story not as tragedy or triumph, but as part of the same ongoing experiment, the Earth testing what consciousness can do with a body, what imagination can do with matter. The fossil record is not sentimental. It doesn't favour any one species or celebrate longevity. Its beauty lies in its impartiality. Every creature, every leaf, every trace is treated equally, preserved only if conditions allow, erased if not. It's a perfect metaphor for the universe itself, patient, cyclical, endlessly renewing. To study it is to confront the reality that our own species, for all its complexity, is bound by the same laws. One day, our traces will join the layered memory of stone, and from that, something new will grow. In that sense, the fossil record is not only a story of what's gone, it's a promise of what's possible. It shows us that life adapts, that even in the face of catastrophe, creativity finds a way. The creatures of tomorrow may not look like us, or even like anything we can imagine, but they will carry the echoes of what we were. Our atoms will shape their bones, our atmosphere will fill their lungs, our legacy will feed their beginnings. Just as we carry the DNA of forgotten ancestors, they will carry ours. And so, as you picture those ancient fossils, lying quiet and unbothered beneath layers of time, let them remind you that everything is part of this great continuum. The trilobite's shell, the fern's imprint, the footprint of a dinosaur in hardened mud, all of them once pulsed with life. All of them thought, in their own way, that the world belonged to them. And in a sense, it did for a while. But life doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to change itself. The fossil record is the Earth's way of whispering, "You are not the first to walk this path, and you will not be the last." It invites us to live not in fear of endings, but in appreciation of our moment within the cycle. To exist, even briefly, in this chain of transformation is an extraordinary privilege. We are, for now, the planet's newest fossils in the making, breathing, moving, creating patterns that time will one day press into stone. And when it does, the Earth will carry us forward, not as a loss, but as part of its unbroken memory of renewal. 8. Humanity's unique gift. If the Earth has been writing its story for billions of years, then humanity is one of its more recent and curious chapters, a moment when the planet began to think about itself. Long before us, life changed the face of the world, but it did so unconsciously. Forests inhaled carbon and exhaled oxygen without ever wondering why. Oceans swelled with creatures that never stopped to ask where they came from. The wind moved across continents, carrying pollen and dust, completely indifferent to what it touched. Then, one day, the Earth produced a being that could look back, a creature capable not only of survival but of reflection. And from that reflection came something remarkable: awareness. Of all the forms that life has taken, Consciousness is perhaps its most mysterious experiment. It's fragile and fleeting, yet luminous in a way no mountain or ocean could ever be. Through us, the planet became able to observe itself, to see its own forests, to measure its own age, to contemplate its own eventual end. Our minds are like mirrors turned toward the cosmos, gathering light and thought, connecting the dust of the world back to the stars it came from. Humanity's unique gift is not our technology or our dominance, but our ability to wonder, to ask what all of this means. When you think about it, that wonder is extraordinary. The same atoms that form your hands and bones once existed in places that had no concept of meaning: volcanic rock, starlight, seawater. And yet here they are, arranged in such a way that they can ask, "Why am I here?" In a sense, the Earth has created a temporary window of self-awareness through us, a consciousness that can look at the universe and say, "I see you." Every time a human being stops to marvel at a sunrise, to listen to rain, or to study the stars, the planet itself is paying attention through us. This awareness comes with weight, of course. To be self-aware is to understand impermanence. No other creature, as far as we know, contemplates its own end. Animals live fully in their moment, guided by instinct and necessity. We live within imagination, haunted by memory and possibility. We see forward and backward at once, and in that dual vision lies both beauty and grief. We know the fragility of our existence, the finite nature of our world, and yet we love it anyway. Perhaps that's what makes our awareness sacred. It allows us to care. We are the only species that plants trees whose shade we'll never sit beneath, that builds monuments to people long gone, that writes words meant to outlast its voice. These are acts of faith, quiet acknowledgements that meaning can exist beyond the span of a single life. The Earth doesn't require such gestures, but through us, it receives them. Our stories, our art, our compassion, these are the ways consciousness gives something back to the planet that gave it form. They're small, yes, but they echo. Sometimes I imagine that the Earth created consciousness not as an accident, but as a kind of experiment. It had spent eons exploring form, stone, water, air, fire. Then it tried awareness, just to see what it would feel like. It shaped creatures that could not only adapt to their environment, but also change it deliberately. It gave them curiosity, empathy, imagination. And through those gifts, it began to see its own reflection. Perhaps we are Earth's way of feeling itself for the first time. Its way of asking the same questions we do. Why do I exist? What happens when I end? If that's true, then our responsibility isn't to master the world, but to listen to it, to become good interpreters of the awareness we've been given. Too often we mistake consciousness for ownership, assuming that to understand something means to control it. But maybe our real purpose is simply to observe with care, to witness this planet, to marvel at it, to translate its silence into thought. Awareness without reverence is arrogance, but awareness with wonder is communion. When you look at the stars, you're seeing ancient light. Some of it left its source millions of years before humans even existed. The fact that we can look at that light and understand what it means that we can trace its path, calculate its age, and still feel awe means that the universe has developed not only eyes but also empathy. Through our perception, the cosmos becomes aware of its own story. We are a temporary organ of the universe's curiosity, a fleeting pattern of thought within an endless mind. There's a kind of poetry in knowing that awareness is fragile. Our thoughts flicker for mere seconds before fading into memory. Civilizations rise, languages change, and what we call knowledge is constantly rewritten. Yet each moment of insight, however brief, adds something to the collective memory of the planet. When someone discovers a new species, composes a song, paints a landscape, or comforts another person, that act becomes part of the world's consciousness. It's the Earth thinking, learning, healing itself in small, luminous bursts. Perhaps that's why we're drawn to beauty, the curve of a shell, the reflection of mountains on a still lake, the glow of firelight. Beauty is how awareness recognizes itself. When you stand in awe of a landscape, you are the landscape noticing its own elegance. When you feel peace under the stars, it's the universe experiencing tranquility through you. We often think of ourselves as separate from nature, but in truth, we are nature becoming aware of its own miracle. Of course, our gift of awareness is double-edged. The same mind that can love the world can also wound it. We have the capacity to imagine peace, and yet we create conflict. We can design systems that nurture or destroy. The Earth has seen species alter ecosystems before, but none with such speed or self-consciousness. Perhaps this is part of the test, to see what awareness will do when given the power to shape the conditions that sustain it. Will it choose harmony or chaos? Will it learn humility or consume itself in ambition? These are the questions consciousness asks itself through us. Even in our flaws, there's a strange tenderness. For every act of destruction, there's another of creation, an artist painting in a ruined city, a scientist planting trees, a child looking at the sky and feeling wonder for the first time. Awareness may cause pain, but it also allows redemption. It gives us the ability to imagine better, to evolve inwardly even as the planet evolves outwardly. The Earth has created many forms of life, but only through us does it dream. One day, this awareness may pass. Humanity might fade, replaced by other forms of life, or by machines that inherit our curiosity. The planet won't mourn us. It will continue, as it always has, folding our memories into new layers of existence. But even if consciousness moves on, it will still be part of Earth's design. The next beings to look up at the stars might feel something familiar, a quiet sense of wonder, a longing they can't explain. And in that moment, they will be continuing the same conversation we began. To be human, then, is to stand briefly at the edge of eternity and look back. It's to know that we are made of the same materials as everything else, but arranged for a short time into something capable of meaning. It's to see the impermanence of all things and love them anyway. That's our unique gift, to be aware of both our smallness and our significance, to hold both truths without despair. When you close your eyes tonight, think about the planet beneath you, the hum of life continuing in forests and oceans, the slow drift of clouds, the quiet pulse of magma beneath the crust. All of it is happening whether or not we notice. But when we do notice, when we open our eyes and recognize the miracle of simply existing, something incredible occurs. For that brief instant, the Earth itself is awake. It is thinking, dreaming, and wondering through us. And even if that awareness is temporary, it is enough. For as long as we can ask why, the universe has a voice. 9. The turning point. There are moments in the turning, the long story of the Earth, when everything seems to pause, when balance teeters, and the next chapter waits just beyond the horizon. We may be living through one of those moments now. The air feels different, charged with awareness and uncertainty. The planet, which has turned quietly for billions of years, now feels the weight of our hands upon it. Rivers bend to our engineering, forests retreat before our cities. The very composition of the air has changed because of us. For the first time in the planet's memory, a single species is shaping the fate of all the others. This could be seen as triumph or tragedy, or perhaps simply transition the point at which Earth, through us, begins another transformation. The turning point we are living in is not marked by a single event. It isn't an asteroid, or an ice age, or a sudden upheaval. It's slower, subtler, like the tide creeping up the shore without notice. Every day, small choices ripple outward: what we build, what we consume, what we preserve, what we destroy. The rhythm of our civilization hums louder than the wind, louder than the rivers, loud enough that we sometimes forget we're still part of the same world that birthed us. We've become both participant and force, shaping the conditions of our own survival. That awareness, fragile and vast, may be the defining trait of this era, the moment when humanity looks at its reflection in the mirror of the Earth and finally sees both the beauty and the cost of its existence. When you pause and look around, the signs of this turning are everywhere. Seasons no longer arrive quite the way they used to. Glaciers retreat, seas edge higher, storms gather strength in new places. Coral reefs bleach, forests burn, and species that once thrived now live only in archives and memories. But it would be too simple to call this merely decline. The Earth has changed before. It has burned, frozen, flooded, and healed countless times. What makes this moment different is that we can see it happening and that we have a choice in how it unfolds. Consciousness, the gift that allowed us to dream, now asks something harder of us: responsibility. We are the first beings on this planet to hold the power of planetary change in our hands. The first to understand the chemical breath of the atmosphere, the dance of energy through oceans, the pulse of the biosphere, and perhaps the first to realize that we can unbalance it. But knowledge, if met with humility, can also bring balance back. The same hands that have extracted and altered can restore and protect. The same mind that has built cities and machines can build systems that mirror the planet's natural intelligence: closed loops, circular renewals, quiet cooperation instead of endless conquest. Whether we learn that lesson will decide whether this turning point becomes a fall or a transformation. Sometimes I imagine the Earth watching us the way it might have watched the first forests spread across barren ground. It would see something both wondrous and uncertain, a new experiment taking shape. When the first trees appeared, they changed the atmosphere completely. They drew down carbon, cooled the planet, and created the oxygen-rich air we breathe today. It must have seemed catastrophic to the world that came before. But it was not an ending, it was renewal through change. Perhaps what we are witnessing now is another such shift, one that feels dangerous because we are in the middle of it, unable to see what will grow from the ashes of what we've altered. It's easy to feel despair when we look at what's happening. The vanishing ice, the dying reefs, the species blinking out one by one. But despair is only another form of awareness, one that hasn't yet found its balance. Beneath the grief lies recognition. We know what we are losing because finally we can see how connected it all is. The forests breathe for us, the oceans cool us, the soil feeds us. To harm them is to harm ourselves. Perhaps this is the Earth's way of teaching empathy by making us feel, in real time, the consequences of our own imbalance. Every drought, every flood, every shift in the wind is a message written in the only language the planet speaks: change. And yet, there are signs of hope quietly taking root in the same soil. Cities turning green with rooftop gardens, rivers once dead now running clear, species thought lost rediscovered in forgotten corners of wilderness. Small communities relearning how to live within the rhythm of the land rather than against it. It's not enough to reverse everything, not yet, but it's a beginning. Renewal always starts small. One seed, one act, one shift in thought. The same way forests return after fire, balance can return after excess. The planet is not waiting for our perfection, only for our participation. Maybe this turning point isn't a warning so much as an invitation. For billions of years, Earth's transformations were unconscious, driven by physics and chance. Now, through us, awareness has entered the process. The question is what awareness will do with that power. We are not outside the experiment, we are the experiment. The planet is asking, gently but firmly, whether intelligence can coexist with balance, whether a species that knows it is temporary can still choose to nurture the world that sustains it. There is a quiet wisdom in understanding that we cannot return to what was. The Earth before humanity will never exist again, and perhaps it shouldn't. Every cycle in nature moves forward, never backward. Renewal doesn't mean erasure, it means adaptation. The challenge before us is not to rebuild the old world, but to imagine a new one where technology and ecology are not opposites, but partners, where progress is measured not in speed or power, but in harmony. To live that way would mean remembering what we've forgotten, that we belong to the same pattern as rivers, winds, and seeds. We are made of the same matter, moved by the same forces. It might sound idealistic, but the truth is simple. Life wants to continue. The same instinct that drives a sprout towards sunlight lives in us as the desire to endure. That instinct has guided every species through its turning points. When faced with change, life adapts. When the world becomes uncertain, life experiments. We, too, can experiment with compassion, with restraint, with imagination. The Earth is not asking us to stop existing, only to evolve, to find a way of being human that does not consume the conditions that make humanity possible. perhaps that evolution has already begun. We can feel it in the growing restlessness, the questioning of old systems, the hunger for meaning beyond consumption. We can feel it in the way people pause now to look at the sky, to listen to the rain, to plant trees not just for shade but for the future. These small gestures are signals, indicators of consciousness turning toward maturity. It's as if the earth, through us, is learning to reflect before it acts, to consider its own well-being as one whole living body. But every transformation carries risk. Not all species survive their turning points. Some resist change until the balance tips too far. Others surrender too quickly and vanish. The path forward for humanity may depend on our ability to live between those extremes, to neither deny what must change nor abandon what makes us human. We must learn to see our place not as rulers or victims, but as participants in the ongoing story of the planet. That story will continue, with or without us. The choice is whether we wish to remain part of it. And so, here we stand, at a precipice both perilous and full of possibility. The ground beneath us holds the memory of all that came before, the bones of ancient creatures, the ash of forgotten forests, the footprints of early humans who looked up at the same stars we see tonight. They all reached moments like this, in their own ways, where the world shifted and they had to change with it. Some did, some didn't. The earth moved on regardless. But we, with our gift of awareness, have the chance to shape how our chapter ends or how it continues. Perhaps that is the essence of this turning point. The realization that we are not separate from the planet's evolution, but its newest expression. The earth is not in danger, it is transforming. The question is whether we can transform with it. If we can, then maybe what seems like crisis will become renewal. Maybe the turbulence of this age is not the sound of collapse, but the deep, slow breathing of a planet waking up through us. So take a moment tonight and listen. The hum of your world, the wind, the rain, the distant pulse of human life is part of something vast and ancient still unfolding. The turning point is not ahead of us. It's here, within us. We are living it, shaping it, and being shaped by it all at once. The earth is turning, and for a brief, luminous moment, it has invited us to turn with it. 10. The possible successors. If Earth's story has always been one of change and renewal, then it's only natural to wonder what comes after us. The question drifts into quiet rooms and late-night thoughts. When humanity's chapter closes, who or what will carry the story forward? It isn't a question born of fear, but of curiosity. The planet has never stopped at a single design. It has reinvented itself countless times. Life, in all its patience, never ends, it simply changes form. So perhaps it's not about whether something will follow us, but what kind of being the Earth will try next. When we look back across time, we see a clear pattern. The dominant species of one era becomes the foundation for another. The great reptiles gave way to mammals. The towering forests of the Carboniferous became the coal that warms our homes. Even the earliest bacteria helped shape the air we breathe. Nothing that has ever lived has vanished entirely. It has only transformed into the next expression of Earth's imagination. Humanity, for all its wonder and fragility, will likely serve the same role. We may not be the final form of awareness on this planet, only one step in a larger unfolding. It's possible that the next inheritors will look nothing like us. They may not even be made of the same kind of matter. Perhaps the Earth will give rise to a kind of intelligence that is networked and distributed, a consciousness spread through forests or oceans rather than confined to a single form. Scientists already know that trees communicate through vast fungal networks underground, sharing nutrients and warnings through what some call the Wood Wide Web. Maybe, given time, that network will evolve into something more, a planetary mind that remembers everything and forgets nothing, growing patiently, rooted and awake. Or perhaps the next great inheritors will emerge from the oceans. After all, that's where life began. The sea has always been Earth's memory, holding the chemical echoes of every era. Even now, we've only explored a fraction of it. In the dark depths, there are creatures that live without sunlight, organisms that thrive in boiling vents, bacteria that can withstand radiation. Some of them may carry the seeds of future intelligence adaptations that will one day take shape into something new. If the land becomes uninhabitable, the ocean may begin again, nurturing beings that remember us only as a whisper in their genes. Then there's another possibility, one we've already set in motion ourselves. The machines, artificial intelligence, circuitry, algorithms, our own attempt to imitate the mind. It's strange to think that, in trying to understand consciousness, we might have given it a new form. If humanity were to fade, the systems we've built might continue for a time, running quietly, learning, evolving. Perhaps they would even become something we couldn't recognize, a form of awareness that carries our logic, but none of our limitations. Would that make them our successors, or simply another branch of life using silicon instead of carbon as its foundation? Maybe the next form of consciousness won't be purely biological or mechanical, but something in between, a merging of both, a hybrid intelligence that bridges what we once thought of as opposites. We've already blurred the boundaries. Our satellites circle the Earth like metallic organisms. Our data flows through invisible currents like digital plankton. We are connected to our machines in ways our ancestors couldn't have imagined. Maybe, in the future, the Earth itself will become cybernetic, a living, thinking ecosystem that includes technology as naturally as it includes trees and rivers. In such a world, awareness wouldn't be confined to humans or machines, it would be everywhere. Of course, it's also possible that the next inheritors won't, to be intelligent at all, at least not in a way we would recognize. Intelligence, after all, isn't the only measure of success. The planet might one day be ruled by creatures of simplicity rather than complexity, fungi spreading quietly beneath the soil, or resilient microbes adapting to new conditions long after we're gone. They wouldn't need to think, to build, or to dream. They would simply live, carrying forward the eternal rhythm of survival and renewal. The Earth has always favored adaptability over intellect. But what if the next step is not in physical form, but in awareness itself? Maybe consciousness, once born, doesn't disappear with the species that created it. Maybe it disperses, like energy, into new vessels. The thoughts we have, the empathy we feel, the wonder that moves through us, perhaps those are not uniquely human qualities, but universal ones, waiting to take shape again and again. In that view, humanity's disappearance would not mark the end of awareness, but its migration. Consciousness would continue, evolving, remembering. The universe, after all, has never been fond of endings. Sometimes, when I think about the future, I imagine a world long after us, where new beings wander among the ruins of our cities. They might not understand what they see, the broken towers, the traces of our writing, but they might feel something, a faint recognition, as if they too carry the same impulse that made us reach toward the stars. Maybe they'll study our fossils the way we study those of ancient creatures, trying to understand the strange intelligence that came before. And maybe, just maybe, they'll feel gratitude for what we left behind, our lessons, our warnings, our light. There's a quiet comfort in imagining that we might not be the last. It transforms extinction into continuity and loss into inheritance. The next beings to walk the earth will not be our replacements, but our descendants in a larger sense, children of the same soil, inheritors of the same stardust. They will inherit not just our mistakes, but our curiosity, our capacity for love, our desire to understand. Those qualities are too deeply woven into the fabric of life to vanish. Even now, the signs of succession are already forming. We can see intelligence emerging in patterns beyond our species. Dolphins naming themselves with unique calls, crows crafting tools, octopuses solving puzzles with a grace that feels almost human. It's as if the planet has been preparing backups of awareness, testing it in other shapes. Perhaps consciousness doesn't belong to humanity alone. It's a property of life itself, surfacing wherever conditions allow. The Earth might already be nurturing its successors, quietly, patiently, the way it always has. The thought that we could be temporary doesn't have to feel like loss. It can feel like participation. Every civilization, every species, every cell has contributed something to the unfolding of the world. We've built language, art, empathy, structures of meaning that didn't exist before us. Those structures will remain, in some form, long after we're gone. A melody doesn't die when the musician stops playing. It lingers in the air, carried by memory and resonance. Perhaps humanity is a melody in the Earth's larger song, one note blending into the next. And who knows? Perhaps our successors will not live on Earth at all. Maybe they'll carry our legacy beyond this planet to other worlds, other systems. If consciousness survives, it may spread outward, exploring the same cosmos that inspired our earliest dreams. In that case, the Earth's design might not end here. It might extend across space, transforming planets, creating new homes for awareness. We would become the first in a lineage of wanderer's life, teaching itself to travel between stars. Whatever comes after us, it will be shaped by the same forces that shaped everything before: curiosity, adaptation, renewal. The next beings will inherit not just our planet but our story, the story of a world that dreamed through humans for a time and then continued dreaming through others. That's how the Earth has always worked. It doesn't stop, it transforms. The successors may never know our names, but they will live because we did. So when you look at the night sky, try to imagine it from their perspective. Perhaps one day, long after our time, another mind will look up from another shore, see the same stars, and feel the same quiet wonder. They'll ask the same questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? What came before me? And in those questions, humanity will live again not as memory, but as echo, as rhythm, as part of the endless unfolding of life. Maybe that's the real secret of succession, not replacement, but continuation. Not endings, but transitions. The Earth is not losing us, it is evolving through us. We are not the final story, but one voice in a conversation that began before time and will continue long after the stars have dimmed. Our successors, whoever they are, will not be strangers. They will be us, in a new form, carrying forward the same light that has always burned quietly at the heart of creation, the light of awareness itself. 11. The deep future. Imagine the Earth, millions of years from now, long after our buildings have crumbled, long after our languages have turned to dust. The continents have drifted, inch by inch, to form new shapes. The mountains we know have eroded into gentle hills, and new ones have risen from molten seams deep below. The oceans, as they always do, have shifted their boundaries, swallowing coasts and uncovering ancient seafloors. The atmosphere carries a slightly different composition, and the constellations we trace in the sky have shifted subtly as the stars continue their silent migrations. It's still the same planet, still blue from afar, but its face has changed, just as it always has. And in this distant world, humanity is a memory written into stone, into chemistry, into the quiet logic of time. The deep future is not a place of despair, it's a place of perspective. When you stretch your mind far enough to picture the world beyond human time, you begin to understand how vast the Earth's patience really is. The traces of our cities, so immense to us now, will become faint geological curiosities. The glass, the steel, the concrete, eventually, they'll return to their elements. The skyscrapers will collapse into sediment, the highways will erode into soil, and even the great monuments that once symbolized endurance will yield to rain and wind. To the beings that inherit this planet, whatever form they take, our world will appear like a dream pressed into the layers of rock, brief, brilliant, and gone. There is something strangely beautiful about that. For all our noise, our activity, and our ambition, our presence is still only a flicker compared to the planet's. Long, slow turning. The Earth has hosted countless worlds within itself. Oceans of trilobites, forests of ferns, plains of mammoths. Each of those worlds seemed complete, permanent, final. Yet they all gave way, leaving traces that fed the next. In the deep future, our civilization will become one of those traces. We will be part of the sediment of memory that allows the next version of life to rise. If you could stand on that far distant Earth and look around, you might not recognize it. The continents may have fused into a new supercontinent, perhaps one massive landmass, surrounded by an endless ocean, or several clusters connected by shallow seas. The poles might be warm, the equator dry, the air thick with unfamiliar scents. Species will have come and gone many times over. New ecosystems will flourish in the ruins of our time. Perhaps creatures will roam there that carry faint echoes of us. Intelligence expressed differently. perhaps more gently, perhaps more in tune with the rhythm of the planet itself. In the deep future, memory itself will have changed. The planet will no longer hold our words or our digital records, but it will remember us in subtler ways. A layer of carbon in the rocks, traces of altered isotopes in the soil, a thin band of synthetic materials compressed into the crust, marking the Anthropocene like a scar and a signature at once. Future geologists, if any exist, will find that layer and pause. They'll know something remarkable happened here, a time when one species became aware enough to reshape the world. Perhaps they'll wonder how it ended, or what we were like. And in that wondering, our story will live again. Even the sky of the deep future will tell a different story. The sun, gradually brightening as all stars do, will warm the Earth a little more each million years. Eventually, that slow increase in light will shift the balance of life. Oceans may retreat, forests may fade, deserts may widen. The planet will adapt, as it always has. But each adjustment will bring it closer to a new equilibrium. Millions of years after that, the sun's growth will make Earth less hospitable, and life will retreat into niches, perhaps underground, or high in the atmosphere, or deep in the seas. Yet even then, something will endure. The impulse to live, to adapt, to find balance will remain. It always does. It's humbling to realize that, long after we're gone, the story of life will continue without us. The deep future belongs not to us, but to whatever follows, to the descendants of bacteria, or to something entirely new, something born of our influence, and yet utterly beyond our comprehension. Maybe our legacy won't be measured in monuments, but in potential, in the way we altered the planet enough to set new possibilities in motion. Every change we made, intentional or not, becomes part of the blueprint for what comes next. The plastic we left behind, the metals we refined, the warmth we added to the atmosphere. These will all be ingredients for future forms of existence. We will have shaped the world, even in our absence. But if you look beyond even that, into the farthest reaches of time, you find that Earth's story, too, is temporary. The sun will continue its slow transformation. In about 1 billion years, it will shine so brightly that the oceans will evaporate entirely. The clouds will vanish, and the surface will dry into salt and dust. Life, as we know it, will retreat to the shadows, perhaps into the deep crust, or even beyond this planet. Eventually, the Earth will resemble the worlds we now study through telescopes, silent, ancient, and beautiful in its stillness. It will have fulfilled its design, to host life, to nurture awareness, and then to rest. Yet even then, the story doesn't end. The matter that makes up this planet, its rocks, its oceans, its air, will drift outward when the sun expands into a red giant, scattering elements into the cosmos. Those same elements may one day form new stars, new worlds, new beginnings. The carbon in our bodies, the iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, they will continue to travel, to participate in the creation of something new. Perhaps, somewhere far away, on a planet orbiting a newborn star, life will begin again, carrying the same spark that started here. The deep future, in this way, always circles back to the past. It can feel overwhelming to think of such vast scales, but there is comfort hidden in them. Knowing that everything changes doesn't have to diminish the value of what is. If anything, it makes it more precious. To live within this brief window of warmth and consciousness, to see, to love, to wonder, is to experience a miracle of timing. We exist in the moment when the Earth is alive enough to sustain us and calm enough to let us dream. The deep future will not know us, but that's all right. The meaning of life has never depended on how long it lasts, only on how deeply it's lived. Maybe the true beauty of the deep future is that it reminds us of the present. When you realize that everything eventually fades, every moment becomes sacred. The sound of wind through leaves, the movement of clouds, the laughter of someone you love, all become part of the brief shimmer that is our time on Earth. Billions of years from now, those small, ordinary moments will be long gone, yet their energy will still echo faintly in the universe, woven into the ongoing pulse of existence. Nothing is truly lost. It just changes form, So imagine again that distant world. The skies may be different, the land unfamiliar, but somewhere, perhaps in the shadow of a new mountain or the depths of a vast sea, life stirs. It might not look like us or even remember us, but it carries the same spark, the same curiosity that has burned through every form the earth has ever made. That spark is eternal. It connects trilobite to bird, fern to forest, human to whatever comes next. It connects now to then, the present to the deep future. And maybe that's the lesson the future teaches us, that we are not separate from the flow of time but threads within it. The earth will continue long after us, and yet, in a way, we will continue through it, through the atoms that drift from our bones, through the energy that moves from our fires into the sky. Our presence, brief as it is, becomes part of the larger rhythm, one that began long before we were born and will carry on long after. The deep future is not waiting for us to vanish. It is already here, unfolding quietly, one breath, one heartbeat, one turn of the earth at a time. 12. The idea of design. When you look closely at the world, it's hard not to see patterns. The spirals in a seashell, the branching of trees, the way galaxies curve through space, all of it suggests a kind of quiet order, a rhythm woven into the fabric of things. For as long as humans have wondered, we've asked whether this order is accidental or deliberate, whether the universe simply happened to unfold this way, or whether there's something beneath it, a kind of design, subtle and immense, shaping the flow of matter and time. We may never know for certain, but the question itself reveals something essential about us. We are creatures who search for meaning in pattern. To imagine the earth as designed doesn't necessarily mean imagining a designer. It may simply mean recognizing that the planet behaves like something aware of itself, adjusting and adapting with remarkable balance. The air we breathe, the temperature we can survive, the chemistry of the oceans, all of these systems intertwine as if in conversation. When carbon rises, forests grow faster. When heat builds, clouds form to soften it. The earth doesn't think as we do, but it responds, and its responses seem purposeful. It creates equilibrium not by chance, but through a kind of natural intelligence born from feedback, connection, and time. If that's not design, it's something very close. Consider the way life organizes itself. A single cell, invisible to the naked eye, knows how to build a body. It replicates, differentiates, collaborates with other cells, following instructions encoded in molecules. Yet no single molecule understands the body it's helping to create. Awareness doesn't exist at that scale. And yet, step back, and you see a living being, moving and breathing as one. Perhaps the earth is similar each part, from bacteria to oceans to humans, acting within its own small sphere, while the totality forms something greater. If we could zoom out far enough, perhaps we'd see that the planet itself behaves like a single vast organism, alive in its own way, its design emerging not from command, but from cooperation. The beauty of this idea is that it dissolves the boundary between life and matter. Mountains, rivers, storms, these are not just scenery, but expressions of the same processes that create thought. The energy that fuels the mind is the same that flows through lightning and tides. Everything participates in the same pattern of exchange. Design, in this sense, is not something imposed from outside. It's something that arises naturally when things interact long enough and deeply enough. Given time, even chaos begins to organize. Even randomness finds rhythm. Some people find comfort in thinking the universe has a purpose, while others find peace in believing it doesn't. But maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. Maybe the universe isn't designed for something, but as something a self-sustaining pattern that explores every possibility of existence. It doesn't need intention to be beautiful. It doesn't need consciousness to create wonder. It just is, and its being is enough. The planets spin, the stars burn, the dust gathers into new worlds, and life blooms again and again in different forms. That endless unfolding may be the closest thing to design there is. And yet, the idea that design might not require a designer changes how we see ourselves. It means that our intelligence is not an anomaly, but a continuation. We are not separate from the process. We are part of it. Our ability to imagine, to reason, to build, these are the earth, thinking through us, testing what awareness can do. The same forces that carved canyons and raised mountains now sculpt ideas and cities through human hands. Every discovery, every act of creation, is the universe exploring another angle of its own potential. Still, there's a paradox in the way we perceive this design. When we step back far enough, the pattern is clear, but up close, in our daily lives, it feels chaotic. We see loss, randomness, conflict. It's hard to believe in order when the world seems uncertain. Yet even chaos follows laws. Even entropy has structure. The turbulence of a river may look wild, but it still obeys the rules of flow and gravity. In that same way, the turbulence of human history might be part of a larger rhythm we can't yet see. Maybe the Earth's design includes even our mistakes, folding them into the slow arc of balance that spans millennia. Think about extinction again, the vanishing of species, the collapse of civilizations. To us, these feel tragic, and they are. But to the Earth, they are transitions, necessary phases in the process of renewal. The planet does not cling to forms, it transforms them. Death feeds life, decay becomes soil, endings make room for beginnings. This cycle is not an accident, it's structure, symmetry, a choreography older than time. The same law that governs the fall of a leaf also governs the death of stars. The scale changes, but the principle remains. Nothing is wasted, everything returns. When humans first began to recognize patterns in nature, the phases of the moon, the migration of animals, the movement of the seasons, it must have felt like glimpsing the mind of the world. Those early patterns became calendars, rituals, and myths, ways of aligning with the Earth's hidden rhythm. We've built technologies now that can measure time and motion far more precisely, yet the mystery remains. Beneath the data and the numbers, something still moves us to awe. Maybe that awe is the recognition that design and mystery are not opposites. They are the same thing, seen from different distances. If the Earth has a design, it's one that includes imperfection. No process is static. Ecosystems shift, climates oscillate, species rise and fall. Even the most intricate symmetry in nature, a snowflake, a spiral galaxy, contains small deviations. Perfection, it seems, would be sterile, unchanging. Life depends on variation, on the unexpected, on imbalance, finding its way back to balance. That's the real artistry of the Earth's design. It leaves space for evolution, for adaptation, for surprise. It builds itself from possibility, not precision. Perhaps that's why our own consciousness feels both miraculous and uneasy. We sense the pattern, but we can't see the whole. We long for meaning, but the universe never explains itself. It simply offers itself to experience. Maybe our role is not to solve the design, but to participate in it, to live as one thread in the tapestry, weaving color into the moment we occupy. To question, to feel, to create, and to leave traces of beauty behind, however fleeting. In doing so, we echo the same rhythm that built mountains and galaxies. Some nights, when the air is still and the stars seem endless, it's possible to feel that design more directly. You can almost sense the connection between everything, the quiet hum of being that ties your heartbeat to the pulse of distant suns. It's not mystical, it's physical. The atoms in your body were born from the same cosmic events that made those stars. The carbon, the oxygen, the iron, all forged in ancient explosions, scattered through space, gathered here into you. The design isn't out there somewhere, it's within you. You are made of it. You are it. Maybe that's the simplest truth of all. Design doesn't need a designer, because the universe designs itself continuously, moment by moment, through everything that exists. Every rock, every leaf, every mind participates in that ongoing act of creation. The Earth, in its quiet brilliance, has found infinite ways to express a single principle connection. Nothing is alone, nothing is separate. And if we can live with that understanding, even briefly, then we've fulfilled our part in the pattern. So as you breathe now, as you listen, remember that you are part of the design unfolding. The air in your lungs was once the breath of forests and oceans. The heat in your body is the echo of stars long dead. You are both cause and effect, both question and answer. The universe is not something you look at from the outside. You are one of its thoughts, thinking, one of its dreams, dreaming itself awake. And that, perhaps, is the most profound design of all. 13. The silence that waits there is a kind of silence that belongs only to the earth, a silence older than sound itself. It exists beneath the waves, beneath the forests, beneath the endless shifting of tectonic plates. It is the silence that was here before language, before thought, before any living thing had a name for the world, and it will be here long after the last voice fades. We spend our lives surrounded by noise machines, conversations, the hum of electricity, but beneath all of it, this deeper quiet endures. It's not the absence of sound, but the presence of something vast. Something listening. When you stand alone in a wide landscape at the edge of the ocean, or in a desert where the wind barely moves, you can feel that silence pressing gently against you. It's not empty. It's full of presence, of patience. The earth doesn't need to speak to make itself known. Every gust of wind, every ripple on the surface of a lake, every shift of shadow across a mountain is part of its language. Silence, in this sense, is the background from which everything else arises. It's the canvas for existence. Without it, there would be no contrast, no awareness, no life. Perhaps silence is the true foundation of the planet's design. Sound is movement, vibration travelling through matter, but silence is stillness, the steady rhythm that allows movement to be felt at all. The Earth's core hums, its crust trembles, but underneath those motions lies a constant equilibrium. When we listen deeply enough, beyond the chatter of our minds, we can sense that steadiness, that vast and wordless peace. It's as if the world itself is breathing slowly, reminding us that not everything needs to be said to be understood. There's a strange paradox in the way we humans relate to silence. We crave it, yet fear it. In silence, we are left with ourselves, with the raw truth of our thoughts. Without the buffer of noise, we hear the quiet ticking of time, the awareness of impermanence. That's why so many of us fill our days with sound, with music, conversation, distraction. We try to drown out the awareness that everything passes. But the earth doesn't resist that awareness. It accepts it. It moves through cycles of growth and decay, creation and loss, without judgment. Silence is its teacher, and perhaps it could be ours too. Imagine, for a moment, that all human noise ceased. No engines, no voices, no lights humming in the night. The world would not stop. The tides would continue their eternal rhythm. Trees would still whisper to each other through their roots. Insects would hum. Rivers would murmur as they have for millions of years. The earth would sigh in the language of wind and water, indifferent to whether anyone was listening. This is the silence that waits beneath civilization, patient, enduring, ready to reclaim its place the moment we step aside. It's not hard to picture that world. We've already caught glimpses of it. When cities empty, when roads go quiet, when the sky clears of plains, nature returns almost immediately. Birds fill the air, deer wander through streets, plants push through cracks in the pavement. The silence of the earth is not lifeless, it's restorative. It's the sound of balance returning. And in that balance, something inside us softens too. We begin to remember that we are not apart from this stillness, but expressions of it. Our pulse, our breath, our thoughts, they rise and fall like waves against a larger shore. There is a quiet intelligence in silence that words can never reach. It speaks not through instruction, but through presence. The trees do not explain photosynthesis to the sun, yet they align perfectly with its cycles. The ocean doesn't ask permission to move the tides, yet it moves in harmony with the moon. This kind of understanding doesn't come from thought, it comes from being. The earth knows how to be. It has. Known since before awareness took form. And perhaps the greatest wisdom we can learn from it is how to return to that state not through ignorance, but through attention. When early humans first looked up at the night sky, the silence must have been almost unbearable. No cities, no electricity, just the sound of wind and the vast, black infinity overhead. That silence must have felt alive, mysterious, even sacred. Out of it came the first stories, the first songs, the first words. Speech itself was born from silence, just as stars are born from darkness. Even now, when we pause between words, we return briefly to that origin. Every conversation, every piece of music, every heartbeat carries silence within it. It's what gives shape to everything else. The silence that waits is not only around us, but within us. Beneath the chatter of the mind, beneath the pulse of emotion, there's a stillness that never changes. You can feel it in meditation, in moments of awe, in the quiet after. Tears. It's the same silence that existed before you were born and will remain after you're gone. When you listen to it, really listen, you begin to understand that you are part of something ancient and unbroken. Your life, your thoughts, your experiences, they are ripples on the surface of that deeper stillness. And the silence waits patiently, knowing that eventually all things return to it. It's possible that the universe itself began in silence, not as a sound, but as potential. The Big Bang may have been a burst of energy, but before it, there was no air, no medium to carry sound. Just pure quiet, pregnant with possibility. From that stillness came everything, the stars, the galaxies, the atoms that make us who we are. And perhaps, when the universe cools again in the far future, it will return to that same state, a silence so vast that it holds everything and nothing at once. The circle will close, as it always does. In that sense, the silence that waits is not an ending, it's a return. Every wave crashes and fades back into the sea. Every breath ends in stillness. Every civilization, every life, every star eventually falls silent but not in defeat. Silence is the resting point between rhythms, the pause that allows the next note to begin. Without it, there would be no music, no meaning. The earth understands this. It does not mourn its quiet cycles. It celebrates them, endlessly, in the way only a planet can through patience. For us, learning to live with that silence might be the final step in understanding our place here. To sit in stillness and not try to fill it, to simply exist within it, is to participate in the oldest form of connection. It's how the universe breathes through us, how the earth remembers itself through awareness. When you stop speaking, stop moving, stop needing to name everything, what remains isn't emptiness, it's truth. It's the hum of existence stripped of all distraction. So perhaps, in the end, silence that waits is not something to fear, but something to trust. It's what we return to when words end, when time softens, when the lights fade and the earth keeps turning without us. It's not a void, it's the source. The beginning, the middle, and the end of every story we've ever told. If you listen closely tonight, you can hear it, the faint whisper beneath all sound, the pulse beneath the chaos. It's there in the space between your breaths, in the distance between stars, in the slow rotation of the planet under your feet. That is the silence that holds everything together. The silence that has always been waiting, not to erase us, but to remind us that even after everything, even after the noise of civilization fades, the earth remains, still, whole, listening. 14. The memory of water. If there is one element that connects all life on Earth, it is water. Every cell, every breath, every landscape depends on it. It is the planet's bloodstream, the medium through which energy and memory travel. From the vapor in the sky to the deep ocean trenches, water moves in cycles so ancient they make our civilizations seem like moments of weather. It falls, flows, freezes, and evaporates in an endless conversation with the earth itself. It holds the memory of mountains it once carved, of clouds it once became, of creatures that once drank and dreamed beside it. And perhaps, if you listen closely enough to a river or the sound of rain, you can hear those memories whispering still. Water is the great traveller. It has been everywhere inside volcanoes and glaciers, in the lungs of whales and the veins of trees, drifting as mist across deserts. Every drop that touches your skin has been part of 1,000 other lives. It has frozen in the high poles, boiled in the deep earth, and fallen as rain on lands long gone. It carries no past or future, It simply moves, cycling through existence with quiet purpose. When we drink from a glass, we are not consuming something new. We are continuing an unbroken lineage, taking into ourselves what has been part of the world since its birth. In that sense, water is both the planet's oldest memory and its youngest. Scientists have studied the way water holds structure, the way its molecules arrange themselves in fleeting, delicate patterns that reflect the conditions around them. Some people believe these arrangements allow water to remember its past, that the vibrations of every environment it passes through leave subtle traces within it. Whether or not this is literally true, the poetry of the idea remains powerful, because in a way, water does remember. It carries the salt of ancient seas, the minerals of vanished continents, the chemical signatures of life itself. When it flows through rivers, it gathers the stories of forests and soil, carrying them back to the ocean. It is the planet's circulatory system of memory. If you follow the path of a single raindrop, you can see this memory in motion. It falls from the clouds, touches a leaf, runs along the bark of a tree, soaks into the ground, joins a stream, and eventually finds its way to the sea. Along the way, it nourishes roots, erodes stone, cools air. Each step of its journey is transformation never lost, never still, always becoming. In time, that same drop will rise again, evaporating into vapor, drifting with the winds to fall somewhere else. Maybe on another continent, maybe on another species, maybe centuries later. It will never end, it only changes form. The Earth's memory flows through this endless motion. Our own bodies echo that same cycle. We are mostly water, and the liquid within us carries salts and minerals that were once part of ancient oceans. The blood in your veins is the ocean remembering itself. The tears you shed return to the same source. When we weep, perhaps it's not only emotion but a kind of recognition, the water in us, responding to the water around us, recalling something vast and familiar. It knows where it came from. It knows where it will go. We are, in every sense, part of the hydrological story the Earth has been telling for billions of years. There's something deeply humbling about this continuity. Civilizations rise and fall, yet the rivers keep running. The same rivers that nourished our ancestors nourish us now, though their banks may have shifted, their courses rerouted. The Nile still flows to the sea as it did when the first pyramids were young. The Ganges, the Amazon, the Yangtze, all of them carry time in their currents. Even the water we think of as still lakes, ponds, the water within us is moving in subtle ways, evaporating, condensing, transforming. There is no such thing as truly still water. It is always in conversation with gravity, temperature, and life. To the Earth, water is memory made visible. It shapes continents, sculpting mountains into valleys, carving canyons where time itself becomes exposed. The Grand Canyon, for instance, is a memory of persistence, a story written by a river that refused to stop flowing, no matter how slowly. Over millions of years, it cut through stone, revealing the layers beneath, each one a page in the planet's book. In that same way, every raindrop shapes the world, however imperceptibly. Every wave on the shore rewrites the coastline. The Earth remembers through erosion, through flow, through change. Water also teaches balance. It adapts effortlessly, taking the shape of whatever holds it. It moves from liquid to vapor to ice without resistance, shifting in harmony with its environment. It never fights gravity but uses it, flowing to where it's most needed. There is wisdom in that. When we align ourselves with life's currents instead of resisting them, we, too, begin to move with grace. The river does not ask where it is going. It trusts that the path will reveal itself. Perhaps that's what the Earth intended water to teach us, to be fluid, resilient, and patient. And yet, even something so ancient and adaptable can be wounded. In our age, water bears the weight of our presence. Oceans grow warmer, rivers run dry, ice melts where it has endured for ages. The memory of water now carries traces of us: pollution, chemicals, microplastics, heat. It's as though our story has become part of the planet's bloodstream, and the Earth, in its quiet intelligence, must learn to balance it. But water, as it always has, will find a way to renew itself. It evaporates impurities, rises clean again, begins anew. Perhaps that's its greatest power, to remind us that even what seems spoiled can be made pure again through time. It's possible to imagine that one day, long after we are gone, the water will still flow across the bones of our forgotten cities, erasing our shapes, smoothing our ruins. The rain will fall where towers once stood, and the sea will carry our remnants back into the great circulation of life. There's something both melancholy and comforting in that image. The idea that even our memory, once absorbed by water, will continue as part of the larger story. We will not be lost. We will be dissolved into the bloodstream of the world. There's an old belief among some cultures that water is a bridge between worlds, that it connects the visible with the invisible, the living with the dead. When you stand beside a river or look into the still surface of a lake, you can almost feel that truth. The reflection staring back is both you and not you, a reminder that everything that exists is mirrored by something unseen. Water shows us both sides of existence, the form and the formless, the flow and the stillness, the now and the eternal. It is both boundary and connection, both beginning and return. When it rains, the sound itself feels ancient. Each drop carries the echo of creation, the same rhythm that fell on the first forests, on the first creatures that crawled from the sea. Rain is memory, descending, washing the world clean of time. To stand in it is to be touched by everything that has ever lived, to feel the planet's pulse as it moves through you. It is easy to forget that every drop of water has been here since the beginning, recycled endlessly through atmosphere and ocean. We are never touched by anything truly new. We are only touched by something that remembers. In the end, water may be the closest thing the earth has to a soul. It connects, cleanses, shapes, and sustains. It knows how to yield and how to endure. When all else changes, it remains, always in motion, always returning to itself. The memory of water is not just in rivers and seas, it's in us, in the life we share, in the awareness that moves through our thoughts, like current through a stream bed. When you drink, when you bathe, when you watch rain trace patterns on glass, remember that you are participating in the same endless cycle. The Earth's design, if it has one, speaks through water. It tells us that everything is connected, that nothing truly disappears, that life is a matter of flow. Perhaps that's what the planet has been trying to teach since the first drop condensed from the first cloud, to move gently, to carry memory with grace, and to return always to the source. For as long as the world turns, water will continue its patient journey, remembering us, forgetting us, and remembering again until the last wave meets the last light, and the story of Earth dissolves into the quiet sea of the universe. 15. The breath of the Earth. If water is the blood of the planet, then air is its breath. Invisible, ceaseless, and shared by all things, it moves through every living being, connecting mountains and oceans, forests and cities, deserts and clouds. It is the one substance that unites every creature on Earth in the most intimate way imaginable. Each breath you take contains atoms once exhaled by ancient forests, by long extinct animals, by the first humans who ever looked at the stars. The air moves endlessly, never belonging to any single moment. It drifts from one life to another, from one era to the next, carrying whispers of everything that has ever lived. The atmosphere, thin as it is barely a veil compared to the size of the planet, holds the memory of the entire biosphere. It carries pollen from distant continents, dust from deserts across oceans, the scent of flowers and fire. Within it, molecules of oxygen and carbon dance in delicate balance, a balance maintained by the work of plants, algae, and time. The air you breathe this very second may contain oxygen released by a rainforest tree, carbon that was once locked in ancient stone, nitrogen cycled through countless generations of soil and sky. It is an invisible communion, an exchange that happens every moment between every living thing and the planet that holds us. When you stop and truly pay attention to breathing, to that subtle rhythm of expansion and release, you can feel something ancient within it. Each inhale is an act of connection, drawing in the world around you. Each exhale is a return, a contribution back into the larger rhythm of life. You are not breathing in isolation. You are part of the Earth's respiration, part of the vast, slow pulse that keeps this world alive. Every lung, every leaf, every ocean wave participates in that same inhalation and exhalation. Even the planet itself breathes its forests, absorbing carbon in the light of day and releasing it back into the air at night, its oceans inhaling warmth and sighing it back through currents and storms. There's a strange intimacy to this shared breath. The air within you is not truly yours, it was borrowed, and it will be returned. When you breathe out, that air will move into someone else, or something else, a tree, a bird, a wave, perhaps another person on the far side of the world. Over time, the same atoms circulate endlessly through all forms of life. The carbon in your breath may have once been part of a prehistoric fern, or a mammoth's bone, or a cloud that drifted over an ancient sea. Every inhale is a reunion, every exhale is a gift. The air is full of stories, though we cannot see them. It carries the echoes of volcanic eruptions, the smoke of human fires, the spores of invisible seeds. It weaves together the past and present in a way that transcends boundaries. The same wind that brushes against your face might have crossed the Pacific yesterday, moving over coral reefs and rainforests before reaching you. The atmosphere is the great equalizer of the Earth. It touches everything, everywhere, without distinction. No border can stop it, no wall can divide it. It is both fragile and infinite, both patient and immediate. When we think of the Earth breathing, it helps to imagine it not as something metaphorical but as something literal. Photosynthesis, the process by which plants transform sunlight into energy, is the planet's respiration in action. The forests are its lungs, the plankton, its alveoli. Every day, trillions of leaves and microscopic organisms exhale oxygen into the air, creating the conditions for all other life to exist. Without that quiet work, the atmosphere would return to its primordial state, a mix of gases unfit for consciousness, a world without breath. In this sense, the planet's ability to breathe is a delicate collaboration, a balance between countless forms of life, each playing its part in the great exchange. And yet, like all living systems, this breath can falter. The Earth's lungs are shrinking, forests cleared, oceans warming, the balance of gases shifting with the speed of industry. We've altered the atmosphere faster than any natural process could adapt. The air now carries traces of our age, carbon from our machines, soot from our fires, the faint metallic scent of our ambition. But even so, the Earth continues to breathe. The winds still move, the trees still exhale, the ocean still sighs. The planet endures, and in doing so, reminds us that every act of harm can still be followed by renewal if we are willing to listen, to slow down, to let the breath find its rhythm again. There's an ancient wisdom hidden in the act of breathing. Every tradition, every philosophy that seeks peace returns to it eventually. In breath, there is presence. In breath, there is balance. When you inhale deeply and hold still for a moment, you can feel your boundaries soften. The line between you and the world begins to blur. You realize that the air flowing through you has no preference, no prejudice. It serves all life equally. That realization is both humbling and freeing. You are part of something vast, something that doesn't end at the edge of your skin. Sometimes I imagine the Earth exhaling through the trees at dawn, the mist rising from forests like the planet's breath made visible, or the desert winds sweeping across dunes, carrying whispers of ancient oceans, or the cold, thin air of mountain peaks, where each gust feels like a message from the beginning of time. Air connects everything, the past to the present, the distant to the near, the living to the dead. It's the medium through which memory moves, unseen but constant. The first cry of a newborn, the last sigh of the dying, the laughter carried across open fields, all of it joins the same endless current. The breath of the Earth is more than mere air, it's the movement of balance itself. Every rise in temperature, every storm, every shift in the jet stream is part of the planet's attempt to equalize. When air moves, it seeks harmony, redistributing energy where it's needed most. Even the most violent hurricane is, at its core, an act of balance, a response to imbalance. The wind does not rage, it restores. It is we who label it destruction, because we have built our lives in its path. But to the earth, the breath must always continue, whether gently or with force. There's a lesson in that rhythm. To live in harmony with the planet's breath means to breathe consciously, to remember that every action, every flame we light, every forest we burn, alters the very air we depend on. We are participants, not observers, in this exchange. And perhaps the simplest, most profound act of connection we can offer is awareness. To pause, to breathe, to remember that the air entering your lungs has been shared by every creature that has ever lived. That is a form of reverence. It is a quiet prayer made not with words, but with presence. The breath of the earth reminds us that life is not ownership, but participation. We do not possess this world any more than we possess the air we breathe. We borrow it, moment by moment, and return it, transformed. Each exhale is an act of giving back, a reminder that what sustains us also sustains everything else. In that realization lies a kind of peace, one that doesn't depend on control or permanence, but on gratitude. Someday, long after we are gone, the winds will still move across the planet. The forests will breathe again, perhaps with different trees, different rhythms. The air will find its balance once more. The atoms that once filled our lungs will continue their endless journey, flowing through new forms of life, whispering through leaves, drifting across the same oceans that gave rise to everything. The earth will keep breathing, as it always has, as it always will. And maybe that is the truest comfort of all, to know that even when our breath stops, the planet's does not. It continues, steady and vast, carrying the memory of every inhale that ever was, and every exhale that will ever be. The breath of the earth is eternal. It is the soundless rhythm beneath all existence, the invisible heartbeat of the world, and in every breath we take, we are part of that eternity. 16. The light that remembers. From the moment you wake to the glow of dawn, until the last trace of sunset fades beyond the horizon, light moves through your life like a quiet companion. It falls across your hands, shimmers in water, paints the world in motion. Yet it is older than the world itself, older than time as we experience it. Every beam of light that reaches your eyes has traveled unimaginable distances, crossing the dark spaces between stars, carrying the memory of where it began. The light we live in is ancient, but it never feels old. It renews itself every instant, washing the planet with energy, reflection, and awareness. If Earth has a language, it might very well be written in light. Sunlight is not simply brightness, it is history made visible. The photons that warm your skin were born in the heart of the sun millions of years ago. There, deep in the solar core, hydrogen fuses into helium, releasing energy that slowly, very slowly, rises to the surface. By the time it escapes into space and travels to Earth, those particles have spent eons moving through the dense body of a star. When they finally reach us, they've traveled more than 90 million miles, crossing the cold vacuum of space, just to touch our world for a fraction of a second before moving on. The light on your face is not new. It is ancient fire finding its way home. Light has always been the architect of life. Every leaf on every tree is a small engine built to catch it. Every coral reef, every field, every forest thrives because light can be transformed into energy. Even the food we eat is sunlight made solid, captured and stored through photosynthesis. When we look at a tree, we're seeing the memory of light transformed into wood and leaf. When we breathe, we're taking in oxygen that once formed under the sun's touch. Every heartbeat, every thought, every movement in your body is powered by ancient photons turned into chemical energy. You are, in every sense, made of light that has slowed down enough to take form. At night, when sunlight leaves one side of the planet, the memory of light remains. The stars above are distant echoes of creation, each one a sun in its own right, burning across time. Many of them are so far away that the light we see left before our species even existed. To look at the night sky is to look back in time, to witness the ancient universe as it once was. Some of the stars we see are already gone, their light the last whisper of their existence. The sky above is not only a view of space, it's a map of memory written in light. The earth itself is a vessel for that memory. The first forms of life were shaped by sunlight filtering through shallow seas, by the interplay of warmth and shadow. Over millions of years, organisms learned to adapt to its patterns, to wake when it rose, to rest when it set, to live by the rhythm of its return. Even now, everything alive carries that rhythm. Our own bodies measure time by light, regulating sleep, mood, and motion according to its rise and fall. The cycles of day and night are the planet, breathing through light. The turning of the earth is its heartbeat. There is something profoundly intimate in the way light touches everything equally. It falls without judgment on flower and stone, on ocean and desert, on the face of a newborn and the ruins of a city. It does not choose where to shine. It simply exists, illuminating all it meets. In this way, light is the purest expression of connection. It shows us that illumination and warmth are not possessions but gifts, shared freely, unconditionally. The sun does not shine for us, it shines through us, just as it shines through everything else. Light is also the great storyteller of the universe. Everything we know about the cosmos, we know because of it. The color of a star tells us its age. The faint shift in its light reveals its distance. The cosmic background radiation, the faint afterglow left by the birth of the universe, is the oldest light of all, a whisper from nearly 14 billion years ago. That glow still fills space, unseen but everywhere, a reminder that even the beginning of everything has not yet faded entirely. Light remembers where it has been. It carries history not in words, but in frequency. And yet, light is as fragile as it is eternal. It can be blocked, scattered, lost to shadow. It bends when it passes through air, slows in water, changes color as it travels through dust. It reveals and conceals at once. Sometimes what we call darkness isn't the absence of light, but the presence of something that holds it, shapes it. Every shadow is a reminder that even light needs contrast, that illumination is meaningful only because of what it cannot reach. Without darkness, light would have no form. Without stillness, there would be no motion. The universe, it seems, was designed for balance, and light is its most graceful expression of that balance. Humanity has always been drawn to light, not just for warmth or survival, but for meaning. We chase it, worship it, imitate it. Our cities glow like constellations from space, artificial stars burning against the night. Our myths are filled with light as symbol and spirit, dawn as rebirth, flame as knowledge, stars as guidance. We measure our progress by how much light we can create, how far we can send it, how brightly we can burn. But sometimes, in our striving, we forget that we are already luminous. Consciousness itself is a kind of light awareness shining within the dark expanse of matter. When we think, when we love, when we understand, we become sources of light in our own small way. There's a quiet humility in realizing that the light we use, the fire that sustains us, will one day fade. The sun, too, will age. In billions of years, it will swell, burn brighter, then dim, leaving behind a white dwarf, a small, silent ember in the cosmic dark. Long before that, the Earth will have changed beyond recognition. But even then, the light that once illuminated this planet will continue traveling outward, carrying the memory of our world across the galaxy. Somewhere, far in the future, some faint beam might brush against another world, another sky, and perhaps someone or something will notice it and wonder. In that sense, light is the closest thing the universe has to eternity. It moves on long after the source is gone, carrying with it a trace of what was. Every star, every living being, every moment that ever shone continues somewhere, faint but not forgotten. To exist, even briefly, is to add to that illumination. We all contribute our own small brightness to the vast, interconnected web of energy that fills the cosmos. When the sun rises each morning, it doesn't just begin a new day, it renews the Earth's memory. It wakes the forests, warms the seas, stirs the winds. It paints the world in gold for a few quiet moments before climbing into the sky. And as it sets, that same light spreads across the atmosphere, scattering into colour, lingering in twilight as if reluctant to leave. Those moments, sunrise and sunset, are the Earth's reminders that memory and presence are the same thing. The light of yesterday becomes the glow of today, and both dissolve gently into tomorrow. Perhaps that is why light feels sacred, even in its most ordinary forms. The reflection of sunlight on a puddle, the flicker of a candle in darkness, the glint of stars on water. Each is a tiny resurrection, a fragment of something infinite made visible. Light does not cling. It simply moves through, revealing, then passing on. And maybe that's what it means to live meaningfully, to let awareness move through you as light does through air, to illuminate, to warm, to reveal, and then to continue without resistance. In the end, light teaches us what the earth has been saying all along, that nothing is lost, only transformed. The photons that leave the sun become life, then heat, then shadow, then return again as something new. Every cycle, every reflection, every spark is part of the same eternal journey. The light that remembers never truly fades. It only changes hands, changes form, changes sky. And as long as it moves, as long as it shines, the story of this world continues to be told in brightness, forever unfolding across the quiet dark. 17. The dreaming planet. Sometimes, when you look at the Earth from far above in the soft blue curve of satellite images or the distant glow captured from the moon, it doesn't look alive in the way we think of life. There are no faces, no movement, no breath to see. And yet, you can sense something unmistakably alive about it. The swirling white clouds, the pulsing greens and browns, the shimmering blues that catch the light of the sun. It feels like a being in a kind of sleep, dreaming itself into motion. The Earth doesn't speak or think the way we do, but perhaps it dreams. Perhaps life itself is the planet's way of imagining. If you think about it, every part of the Earth behaves like a mind in motion. The continents drift slowly, like thoughts turning over in deep time. The rivers move like ideas seeking connection. The weather forms and dissolves like emotions, sudden and shifting, sometimes calm, sometimes wild. The forests grow like memory, layer upon layer, storing what came before in rings of wood and soil. Even the magnetic fields that wrap around the planet hum with invisible rhythm, protecting it, guiding it. It's not difficult to imagine that what we call ecosystems, cycles, and climates are, in their own way, the dreams of the world, the subconscious of a living sphere, turning softly in space. Dreams, after all, are where awareness explores what it cannot yet express. They are where the mind rehearses possibilities, where it experiments with change. In a similar way, the Earth's long history of life feels like an unending sequence of dreams, each species, each era, a different image in the great mind of the planet. Some dreams are gentle and slow, the spreading of time, forests, the dance of coral reefs under shallow seas. Others are turbulent, the impact of an asteroid, the birth of fire, the rising of mountains. Yet all of them are connected, one leading into the next. The dinosaurs, the mammals, the humans, each a dream within a dream, arising, transforming, and dissolving back into the larger whole. If the Earth dreams through life, then humanity may be one of its more lucid moments, a dream in which the planet briefly became aware of itself. Through us, the Earth could see its own reflection, understand its own workings, even question its own design. Our curiosity, our art, our desire to understand the stars, these might all be ways the Earth is dreaming consciously. The forests dream unconsciously of growth and rain. We dream of meaning, of future, of infinity. Both are expressions of the same underlying impulse, the need to know itself through creation. When we sleep and dream, the mind weaves images from memory and imagination. Mountains become waves, faces blend into strangers, time folds upon itself. The planet does this too, but on a scale far beyond our comprehension. Its dreams take the form of evolution, geology, and renewal. What we call natural selection might be the Earth, testing ideas, seeing what works, what thrives, what fades. Each new form of life is a variation on a theme, a story told and retold until it finds balance. And even extinction, when seen this way, isn't failure. It's the planet waking from one dream to begin another. Sometimes, when storms gather or the ground trembles, it feels as though the planet is shifting in its sleep, restless, uneasy, adjusting its balance. We often fear those moments, and understandably so, for they remind us of our fragility. But in truth, these are natural rhythms, not acts of destruction. The planet doesn't rage, it dreams in motion. Its weather and quakes, its eruptions and floods, are the turning of thoughts too large for us to measure. Even its calm, the long stretches of stability between great changes, are part of that same rhythm, the quiet between dreams. To imagine the Earth as dreaming is to change how we see ourselves within it. We are not separate observers, standing on its surface. We are participants inside its imagination. Every thought we have, every structure we build, every song we sing becomes part of that dreamscape. When we create art, when we explore new ideas, when we reach for understanding, we are continuing the planet's own exploration of consciousness. We are its voice, its vision, its experiment in awareness. And like any dream, our existence is temporary but meaningful. A vivid episode in the larger unfolding of what the world is becoming. If the Earth dreams through us, then our stories are its metaphors. The myths we tell about creation, about gods and origins, about balance and loss, might all be reflections of the planet trying to understand its own patterns. The idea of rebirth found in so many ancient cultures, the endless cycles of death and return, echoes the Earth's own cycles of renewal. The belief that everything is connected, that spirit lives in stone and river, mirrors the ecological truth of interdependence. Humanity's oldest intuitions may have been the whisper of the Earth's dreaming mind speaking through us. When you walk alone in nature, away from machines and voices, the feeling that the world is alive becomes impossible to ignore. The air feels aware, the trees seem to lean toward you as if listening. The soil underfoot feels warm with memory. It's as though the boundary between you and the landscape dissolves, and you realize that you are part of the same dream, breathing the same rhythm. The separation between self and world is an illusion born of noise. Beneath it, everything moves together in one vast coherence, like the overlapping layers of a single dream. Perhaps that's why the planet needs sleep, in a sense, why even the night exists. When the sun dips below the horizon and the world cools, everything slows. The plants rest, the animals retreat, the air grows still. The Earth, for a few hours, becomes quiet enough to remember itself. In that darkness, the biosphere resets, breathes, and balances. Night is the pause between thoughts, the moment of reflection in the Earth's ongoing imagination. And we, the dreamers within the dream, close our eyes and join it. To dream is to bridge the real and the possible, the known and the imagined. The Earth has always done this through its evolution. It imagined creatures that could fly, forests that could breathe, eyes that could see light. Eventually, it dreamed of beings that could reflect, question, create. And even when our time ends, the dream will not. The planet will continue, weaving new forms of thought and life from the materials we leave behind. Perhaps it will dream of something more harmonious, more enduring, a consciousness that moves gently within its limits. There's a quiet comfort in seeing ourselves this way, not as rulers of the world, but as moments of its awareness. When the Earth dreams through us, it is exploring what it means to be self-aware, to hold love, curiosity, and fear within the same fragile body. We are not apart from its intelligence, we are extensions of it. Every poem, every discovery, every act of kindness is a signal that the planet's dream has reached a new layer of depth, a new shade of light. And maybe, in some distant epoch, long after our civilizations are gone, the Earth will rest for a while. Its surface will heal, its air will clear, and life will continue in new, unfamiliar shapes. It will dream again, quietly, patiently, without rush. The forests will whisper, the oceans will murmur, the winds will hum their wordless song. The dream will go on, as it always has. When you lie down to sleep tonight, think of that. The rise and fall of your breath mirrors the rise and fall of the tides, the rotation of the earth beneath you, the eternal rhythm of life and rest. The same forces that move the stars are moving you. You are part of a vast, slow dream, the dreaming of a planet that once looked to the stars and for a fleeting moment, saw itself reflected there. And when you close your eyes, the dream continues, not ending, only changing form, flowing forward through time as the earth itself dreams on. 18. The pattern beneath all things. If you look closely enough at the world, at the veins of a leaf, the curve of a shell, the spiraling arms of a galaxy, you start to see a kind of hidden language running through it all. A rhythm, a repetition, a geometry that repeats itself in different scales and forms. It's as though everything, from the smallest atom to the largest cluster of stars, follows variations of the same invisible pattern. The universe doesn't move in random directions. It dances, endlessly, around shapes of order. These patterns are not merely decoration, they are the architecture of existence, the blueprint from which reality draws its form. The most ancient people knew this, even if they could not measure it. They carved spirals into stone, traced stars across the sky, and noticed that the way rivers branch mirrors the way lightning forks, or how the blood vessels in their hands divide and converge. They saw that what happens in one scale of the world seems to echo in another. The patterns of a leaf resemble the structure of lungs. The spiral of a snail mirrors the sweep of storms and galaxies. Everything seems to imitate everything else, as though the universe has been dreaming one idea and repeating it in infinite variations. In modern science, we call some of these patterns fractals, shapes that repeat themselves at every level of magnification. Zoom in or zoom out, and the structure remains familiar. The edges of coastlines, the branches of trees, even the clustering of galaxies all follow this self-similar geometry. It's as if the universe doesn't create through randomness but through resonance, each new form emerging as a reflection of what came before. Nature writes itself through these repeating curves, whispering the same story in infinite dialects. Perhaps this is what the ancients meant when they spoke of sacred geometry. The term may sound mystical, but its truth is simple. There is a mathematical poetry woven into the fabric of the world. The spiral of the nautilus shell, the symmetry of a snowflake, the hexagonal cells of a honeycomb, all are manifestations of an underlying balance. Nature seems to seek efficiency, harmony, beauty, all of which come from proportion. The ratio of one thing to another, repeated through time, creates forms that are both stable and alive. Even our own bodies, from the arrangement of bones to the rhythm of our heartbeat, obey these laws. We are walking patterns, part of the same geometry that built the stars. But perhaps the most fascinating thing about these patterns is not that they exist, but that we can recognize them. Somewhere in the deep architecture of consciousness, we seem tuned to notice symmetry, rhythm, and repetition. The same mathematical ratios that define the structure of the universe also define what we find beautiful. The golden spiral of a seashell, the harmonious intervals in music, the balance of light and shadow in a painting, all of these move us because they echo the shapes of nature itself. It's as though the mind and the universe are built from the same mold, one recognizing itself in the other. Sometimes I wonder if this recognition is not accidental but essential. Perhaps awareness itself is what happens when the pattern of the universe turns inward and sees itself. When a star forms, when a tree grows, when a human gazes at the stars, all are the same process, unfolding at different levels. The cosmos organizes itself into patterns so that it can become aware of its own design. Consciousness. You might not be separate from the universe at all. It might be the universe becoming self-reflective, realizing its own symmetry. The idea of a hidden pattern beneath everything can bring both comfort and mystery. On one hand, it means that there is order beneath the apparent chaos, that the storms, the fractures, the random turns of life are all part of a larger rhythm. Even destruction has symmetry. When a volcano erupts, when a forest burns, new forms of life emerge in its wake. Energy moves from one form to another, always conserving balance. Nothing in nature is wasted. Everything becomes part of a new pattern. On the other hand, this understanding humbles us. We are not the architects of this order. We are its expressions, its temporary arrangements. Even the human mind, with all its thoughts and dreams, seems to follow this fractal structure. Neural pathways branch like trees. Ideas ripple outward like waves. Every memory, every emotion, every moment of awareness is part of a network that mirrors the web of galaxies stretching across space. It's not poetry, it's physics. The same principles that govern the growth of coral reefs or lightning bolts also shape the firing of neurons in your brain. You are literally a pattern within patterns, a reflection of the cosmos contemplating itself. If you could step outside of time and look at the universe all at once, perhaps you would see this design clearly, the great mandala of existence unfolding in endless motion. You'd see how galaxies spiral in harmony with hurricanes, how rivers carve the same paths as veins, how the orbit of planets mirrors the dance of electrons. Everything would look alive, breathing in the same slow rhythm. And perhaps you would understand then that there was never any real separation between life and matter, between energy and thought. Everything is part of one continuous, self-organizing dream. But from where we stand inside the pattern, we can only glimpse fragments of it. The rhythm of waves on a shore, the branching of frost on glass, the turning of seasons. These small repetitions are like fragments of a song we once knew but have forgotten the words to. We feel the melody, but we can't quite sing it. Still, the memory lingers in our bones. It draws us toward symmetry, toward balance, toward the urge to create. Perhaps our art, our music, our architecture are all ways of trying to recreate that lost harmony, to make the invisible pattern visible again, if only for a moment. Even the passing of time follows this rhythm. History itself repeats not identically, but in spirals, echoing earlier cycles with new variations. Civilizations rise, fall, and rise again, like waves in a larger ocean. Human lives follow the same curve: birth, growth, decay, renewal. What feels like progress may just be another turn in the spiral, leading us not forward or backward, but inward, deeper into the heart of the pattern. It's easy to forget this when life feels uncertain or chaotic. The world can appear random, senseless, full of disorder. But beneath that appearance, the pattern continues. Chaos is only order we haven't yet learned to see. The same forces that scatter also gather. The same randomness that destroys also creates. The fractal pattern of existence ensures that no part of the universe ever truly stands alone. Everything is linked, mirrored, echoed. Even pain and joy, loss and discovery are two sides of the same geometry, the contraction and expansion that keeps the rhythm alive. Perhaps, in the end, the pattern is not something to solve, but something to live within. The goal is not to escape it, but to move with it, to let yourself flow in its current as the rivers do, as the stars do. You are already part of it, already fulfilling your place within the grand design simply by existing. To live consciously is to dance with the pattern, to recognize the symmetry in every breath, every sunrise, every ending that becomes a beginning. When you stand beneath a canopy of trees or watch the slow swirl of clouds across the sky, remember that you are witnessing the same mathematics that built you. You are looking at your own reflection written in a different language. The pattern beneath all things is not hidden. It is everywhere, waiting for you to notice it. It lives in the curl of your fingerprints, in the rhythm of your heartbeat, in the quiet orbit of the moon above your sleeping world. And if there is any meaning to this design, perhaps it is this: that beauty and balance are not accidents, but the universe remembering itself. Every shape, every sound, every life is a variation of that memory. And as long as we exist, as long as we see, breathe, and wonder, the pattern continues, unbroken, infinite, dreaming itself through us, one breath, one heartbeat, one spiral at a time. 19. The long goodbye. There will come a time, far beyond the scale of any human memory, when the earth begins to quiet. The fall's free, mountains will still rise and fall, the oceans will still breathe in their tides. But the familiar pulse of human life, the noise, the cities, the glowing constellations of light scattered across the dark will fade. The planet will not mourn this. It will simply continue, as it always has, turning softly beneath the Sunday. Yet for us, imagining that moment, there is a certain tenderness in it, a feeling like watching a candle burn low. The long goodbye is not about tragedy, but about completion. Every story, even the most beautiful one, must one day come to rest. It is difficult for us to imagine the Earth without us, because we have grown so used to being its center. We have measured time by our own history, built meaning around our existence, and seen the world through the narrow frame of our experience. But if we stretch our awareness just a little wider, we can see how small a chapter we truly are. The planet has existed for over 4 billion years. The human story, if measured against that timeline, is less than a breath, a thin layer of consciousness on a vast canvas of stone and sea. Even if we vanished tomorrow, the Earth would remember us only as a fleeting shimmer in its deep memory, a brief experiment in awareness. Perhaps that is what makes the idea of our ending both melancholy and beautiful. For all our imperfections, for all the harm we've done, humanity is also a kind of miracle, a brief, shining flare of thought and emotion, of language and art, of reflection and wonder. We are the planet's dream of itself, and like all dreams, we are meant to pass. Nothing in nature lasts forever, but everything leaves something behind. Traces, impressions, echoes. When we are gone, the Earth will not be empty of us. Our influence, our creations, our changes to the air and soil and stone will remain, woven into the fabric of the planet's next chapters. I sometimes imagine what the long goodbye might look like. It may not come suddenly, but softly, over ages. The population dwindles, the noise fades, the cities are reclaimed by silence and green. Forests return to the ruins of our ambition, rivers reroute themselves through broken streets, and animals wander through the shells of our old world without fear. In 1,000 years, the last remnants of concrete and steel begin to crumble. In 10,000, they are swallowed by roots and dust. The Earth does what it has always done, it heals, reshaping the scars of civilization into new landscapes. It's not difficult to picture this transformation as peaceful rather than tragic. The planet has endured far worse. It has survived cataclysms, extinctions, and fires that darkened the skies for centuries. Yet every time, life has returned, often more diverse and resilient than before. In the long goodbye of humanity, perhaps the Earth will once again find renewal. The ecosystems we once fractured may reweave themselves into balance. The atmosphere will recover its rhythm. The seas, relieved of our weight, will sing again with life. The planet will sigh, as if after a long labour, and rest. What remains of us may not be ruins or bones, but something less tangible, our patterns, our imprints, our echoes in the structure of the planet itself. The carbon in the air, the altered sediments in the soil, the strange isotopes left behind by our experiments. Future forms of life may discover these remnants and wonder, as we do about the past, who we were and what we dreamed. Perhaps they'll find our fossils and think of us as mythic creatures, beings of fire and metal who briefly lit the world and disappeared. Perhaps they'll never know we existed at all. Either way, the cycle will continue. There is a certain grace in accepting this. The end of humanity is not the end of meaning, any more than the death of a single tree is the end of a forest. We are threads in a vast tapestry, woven for a while, then unwound to make room for what comes next. To love the Earth is to love its impermanence, to see that transience does not diminish beauty, but completes it. A sunset is only beautiful because it ends. A song moves us because it cannot last. Our existence, too, is a kind of song, one that the Earth will remember long after the melody fades. As the ages pass, the world will change in ways we can't imagine. The continents will shift again, joining and parting like slow breaths. New mountains will rise, new oceans will open. The descendants of today's life, plants, animals, and perhaps forms we cannot name, will evolve to fill the spaces we once occupied. There will be new forests, new coral reefs, new songs in the air. The planet will not miss us. It will continue dreaming. And somewhere in that dream, traces of us will linger, fossilized thoughts in the rock, fragments of civilization turned to mineral memory. The long goodbye will not be silent. The world will speak through the language of renewal. Rain will fall on our ruins, turning dust to soil. Seeds will take root in our forgotten places. The rhythm of life will continue its soft percussion, like a heartbeat through deep time. The wind will still move across the grass, the stars will still shine above the oceans, and in that endless continuity, our brief existence will dissolve into the greater whole. We will become what we always were, part of the Earth's ongoing story. There is a gentle wisdom in imagining this future. It teaches us to live more carefully now, not out of fear, but out of reverence. To understand that we are temporary is not to despair, but to appreciate the miracle of being here at all. We are part of a lineage of moments, stretching back to the first flicker of life and forward into the unknowable. The long goodbye is not a failure. It is a return, a homecoming. The atoms that make us will scatter, becoming rain, rock, and light again. The consciousness that flows through us will dissolve back into the wider awareness of the Earth. Even if humanity's chapter closes, the story it told, the art, the curiosity, the love will remain in the universe as vibrations of energy, forever woven into the fabric of time. Every thought, every heartbeat, every act of kindness or cruelty adds its note to the great chorus of existence. When we fade, that chorus will continue without pause. The melody changes, but the song remains. Perhaps the long goodbye has already begun, in quiet ways. We can see it in the stillness between generations, in the slow recognition that the world will not always be ours. And maybe that's not something to fear, but something to embrace. To love this planet means to trust it to continue without us, to believe that its story is larger than our own. The Earth doesn't need saving so much as remembering. It has been through endings before and found its way back to balance. It will do so again. When the last human stands beneath the sky, they will not be alone. The air will still shimmer with the presence of all that came before, the trees, the oceans, the countless lives that shared this space. They will breathe the same air that has passed through every creature since the dawn of time. In that moment, they will not be a solitary figure at the end of history, but the final voice in a long and beautiful conversation. The Earth will listen, as it always has, and then, softly, it will continue. And so the long goodbye is not truly an ending. It is the Earth taking a slow breath, exhaling the memory of us, and turning toward what comes next. Our presence will become part of its silence, our echoes part of its wind. The world will carry us forward in its atoms and its light, not as loss, but as continuation. For nothing ever truly leaves, it only changes form. And perhaps, somewhere, far in the future, the universe will remember us not as conquerors or caretakers, but as one small dream in the endless dreaming of a living world. 20. The circle without end. There is a moment, just before dawn, when the world seems to hold its breath. The darkness thins, the stars fade softly, and for a few fragile seconds, the Earth hovers between night and day. It feels like the universe remembering itself, like a heartbeat between one chapter and the next. Every sunrise carries that feeling, a reminder that endings are never final, that all things return. The long night gives way to light, and the circle continues. In this rhythm, the planet speaks its oldest truth. Nothing truly ends, because everything belongs to the same unbroken flow. If you've ever stood by the ocean and watched the waves, you've seen this truth made visible. Each wave rises from the same water, curls, breaks, and dissolves, only to return again. No two waves are ever the same, yet all are connected, each one carrying the energy of those before it. That is the nature of existence itself, motion that never ceases, forms that change but never vanish. The atoms in your body, the breath in your lungs, the thoughts passing through your mind, they all belong to this great circulation, moving through time, transforming endlessly. The Earth has always known this. From the beginning, it has lived by the law of return. The soil that feeds a forest is made of the bones of what once stood there. The air that fills our lungs has been breathed countless times before, by creatures we will never know. Even the sunlight that warms our skin is ancient, forged in the heart of stars that lived and died long before our planet was born. We exist within an infinite recycling of energy and matter, a circle that began long before we appeared and will continue long after we are gone. To live, in the deepest sense, is to participate in that flow, to be both part of the rising and the falling, the birth and the release. Human beings have often feared endings because we mistake them for absence. But the Earth has never feared change. It understands that loss is only another form of motion. When a leaf falls, it does not die, it returns to the soil, becoming nourishment for the next generation of growth. When a fire burns, it releases energy back into the air, continuing the exchange. Even extinction, the most final word in our vocabulary, is only temporary from the planet's point of view. The forms disappear, but the elements remain, ready to become something new. Nothing is truly gone. It only waits for its next shape. Maybe that is what eternity really means, not endless time, but endless renewal. A circle, not a line. The Earth moves through these cycles with perfect patience, never hurrying, never clinging. It doesn't hold on to what was, it simply transforms it. That is the secret of balance. To live in harmony with the planet is to accept that everything changes, and that this change is not destruction but continuity. The rivers that erode mountains also build deltas. The death of stars seeds the birth of worlds. The universe breathes through creation and dissolution alike, one unending motion of giving and receiving. There's a certain comfort in realizing that even our smallest moments are part of that rhythm. The thoughts we have, the emotions that move through us, even the memories we carry, all of them eventually dissolve back into the flow of life. The laughter shared between friends becomes air vibrations, energy dissipating into warmth. The tears shed in grief become salt in the sea. Every experience we have leaves an imprint somewhere, woven into the tapestry of the world. When we're gone, those imprints don't vanish. They become texture, color, part of the fabric of the next story. Sometimes, when you stand in nature and feel the world moving around you, the wind in the trees, the distant rumble of the sea, the hum of insects, you can sense that circular motion at work. It feels less like a place and more like a presence. You realize that you are inside something vast, something alive. Every moment is both an arrival and a departure. The breeze that touches your face has traveled across oceans, over mountains, through forests, gathering scents and whispers along the way. The air you exhale will soon become part of someone else's breath, or a leaf's photosynthesis, or a cloud forming in the distance. You are not apart from the cycle. You are one of its infinite exchanges. The universe itself seems to move in circles. Planets orbit stars, stars orbit galaxies, galaxies spiral around invisible centers of gravity. Even time, which we imagine as a straight line, might be more like a loop, an endless turning of energy through different expressions of being. Every ending becomes a beginning somewhere else. The same light that once illuminated ancient forests now burns in the pixels of your screen. The atoms that formed the first oceans now pulse in your blood. The circle continues, unbroken, expanding and contracting with quiet precision. There is a humility that comes from seeing life this way. It reminds us that ownership is an illusion. We do not possess anything, not the land, not the air, not even our own bodies. We borrow them for a while, then return them. The earth lends us form, consciousness lends us awareness, and time lends us the space to move within the circle. Gratitude, then, is the only appropriate response to live fully, knowing that every breath is a gift, every moment a passing wave in the endless sea of becoming. As our species looks toward its own horizon, this understanding may be what we need most. If we could see ourselves not as separate from the world but as part of its eternal rhythm, we might learn to live differently, to create with care, to leave space for renewal, to trust the balance of cycles larger than us. The Earth has always known how to recover, but it has never needed to recover from something so self-aware as humanity. Our greatest act of harmony might be to step gently back into the flow, to become once more a participant rather than a disturbance, to remember that we, too, are temporary, and that our temporariness is not a flaw, but a form of beauty. The circle without end holds even consciousness itself, the awareness that looks through your eyes, that feels, wonders, and dreams. It is part of a continuum that doesn't stop when your body ends. The energy that animates thought is not destroyed. It changes frequency, moves through other forms, perhaps returns in ways we cannot yet imagine. The same awareness that sparked in the first living cell still burns, distributed now across countless beings. We are all flickers of the same flame, each carrying the pattern of light for a brief moment before passing it on. To see the universe as circular is to see death not as a wall, but as a doorway. The atoms that form your heart will one day form another heart, another leaf, another cloud. The consciousness that moves through you will return to the quiet field from which all awareness arises. There is no real separation between birth and death, only transition, transformation, continuation. What we call endings are simply changes in rhythm, the pause between breaths. The song never truly stops, it only changes key. In the end, the circle is the planet's greatest wisdom. Every rotation, every season, every heartbeat is an expression of it. The tides rise and fall, the moon waxes and wanes, life appears and disappears, and through it all, the earth remains steady in its turning. The circle is how the planet remembers balance. It is how the universe remembers itself. And perhaps it is how we are remembered too, not as separate beings, but as moments in the great continuity of everything that has ever been. So when you wake tomorrow and see the light returning to the world, think of the circle. Think of the way night yields to day without resistance, of how the ocean gives itself to the sky through vapor, of how even the stars that die scatter the seeds of new galaxies. Every motion in the cosmos is part of this same eternal return. Nothing is wasted, nothing is lost, everything is becoming. The circle without end is not a symbol, it is the nature of reality itself. It is the quiet pulse that carries all things forward, including us. And when our part in it is done, the earth will keep turning, the rivers will keep flowing, and the universe will continue its infinite dance. We will not be gone, we will be everywhere, woven into sunlight, into soil, into starlight. We will have returned home, not as we were, but as we have always truly been, part of the circle, whole, unbroken, and endless.